The views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by this radio show contains different. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dom, this is already shaping up to be a Monday.
Can you believe it? Happy Monday to you, buddy.
Man, we barely got our knuckles in. You barely got your headphones on. This show, it's too big a show. It's too much winning, Dom.
Crudy, you know, so much has happened since we last were on the air together so long ago on Friday. Remember Friday back in the good old days?
Back before McCabe got fired.
Yep.
Back before Trump went to New Hampshire and proposed, what, death to drug dealers.
Yep.
Back before the tweet storm. My understanding, White House aides dragged Trump out to the golf course so he could not tweet anymore.
You got to keep him busy, keep him occupied.
Something of that
Give
sort.
that man a shiny ball.
And one story that dropped over the course of the weekend, we talked quite a bit about the firings, the chaos at the White House last week. One story, do you know how Rex Tillerson, Brexit, do you know how he was unceremoniously dismissed from the Trump administration?
When he was doing his own Brexit.
He was sitting on the crapper.
Yeah, that's when all
it's on the commode.
That's when all the best communications get done via tweet.
Buddy, it's always, I've only been fired, I think once, maybe twice, but not a lot of times, not relative to a guy like yourself.
Yeah.
But,
the day is young.
When you're the guy getting fired, you might as well be on the toilet, right?
Well, wasn't Rex Tillerson overseas? He got like the stomach bug, so they say.
Montezuma's revenge.
Right?
That was my understanding as well. Yeah, he was coming back from doing an overseas Africa, I believe.
Well, and didn't the chief of staff, Kelly, kind of pre-warn him that something might be coming, and then he called in sick the next day, Tillerson did?
Well, I think that was literally the pre-warning was the toilet top pre-warning. I mean, Trump tweets out he probably got fired from Trump's toilet, so it all seemingly
it all comes full circle.
Something of that sort.
Yeah, jeez.
Dom, we're going to have a guest on this show. We met this gentleman in March of 2016, before Trump was the president. And at that time, this gentleman's name, Kraig Moss, he considered himself something of the Trump Troubadour. And he's a talented guy. He's a talented musician. And Fancy Brian, let's play a little sound. This is my friend Kraig Moss. Once upon a time, he was a Trump supporter, let's say, Dom. And if you would, Fancy Brian, this is the day I met him in Janesville, Wisconsin, outside Donald Trump's first rally, at least first one I attended. No, it was his first one in a while. He had been off for 2 weeks. I forget what the reason why, but it was before the Wisconsin primary. Kraig Moss, when I first met him, cut one.
And what's your name, sir?
My name is Kraig Moss. It's Kraig with a K.
And Kraig, how many Trump rallies you been to?
My 18th. I've been to Urbandale. I spoke with Mr. Trump about the ongoing heroin epidemic in Urbandale. I lost my son 2 years ago to heroin. I talked to him about it. He came in front of that stage, and he told me, first and foremost, I want to let you know I'm sorry for your loss. It's got to be a hard thing. He said this heroin is a tough drug to kick, and then he talked about New Hampshire. He had just come down from New Hampshire talking about the same issue.
Now, Kraig Moss literally was addressed from the stage by Donald Trump. We have the sound of that as well. This was a televised rally. Here it is, Donald Trump addressing Kraig Moss from the stage. Cut 3, if you would, Fancy Brian.
And I know what you went through. And he's a great father. I can see it. And your son is proud of you. Your son is proud of you.
Kraig Moss will join us at 3:30. He has written a book, and it will be going into hardbound publication, apparently pre-sales right now.
All right.
The book is called Trump Troubadour No More.
Now, Kraig's been on this show in the past.
About every 6 months or a year, we check in with Kraig Moss. But I can tell you, he's probably not attending many more Trump rallies. Kraig and I did speak earlier today. Very thoughtful. The president made propositions to deal with the opioid crisis. And I think Kraig more thoughtful than the president on this topic. Certainly something near and dear. As he mentioned, he lost his son.
Right.
And when the president of the United States first spoke to him and then addressed him from the stage, he thought he had a sympathetic president to this topic. But I think he thinks there has not been enough action on this point up until now. But let's jump into it. If we don't get going right now, Dom, we're going to run out of show, and it's barely 10 minutes in. If you would, Fancy Brian, let's start with the president this afternoon. Now, this barely an hour ago, Donald Trump back in New Hampshire talking about opioids and putting forth his newest propositions, Dom. Let me summarize it for the people, Dom. Death to drug dealers. If you could, Fancy Brian, play cut 11.
About as bad as there is anywhere in the country. And I said I'd be back, and we are back, and we're pouring a lot of money and a lot of talent into this horrible problem.
So Trump is back in New Hampshire.
He's
promised
back.
He'd be back. You know, he seems so, we will be back mostly what? Because there's primaries. They lead the primaries. He promised to come back because there will be another election. But today he's in New Hampshire. Let's keep going down the list. Donald Trump, lots and lots of dollars down, like $6 billion. Cut 12.
Since then, we've worked with Congress to ensure at least $6 billion additional dollars going through right now in new funding in 2018 and 2019 to combat the opioid crisis.
Sounds like he's taking some opioids.
Also a Monday for Trump. I'm not the only one struggling to get up and running. Dom, let's keep going. Trump, they're going to hold whom accountable precisely? He claims there will be accountability, but I'm not exactly sure whom he's talking about, at least not in this cut. Let's play it. Cut 13, Brian.
Whether you are a dealer or doctor or trafficker or a manufacturer, if you break the law and illegally peddle these deadly poisons, we will find you, we will arrest you, and we will hold you accountable.
I thought he was going to say, and we will kill you.
Well, he eventually does. Let's keep going down the list. Literally, he will kill you. Cut 14.
That toughness includes the death penalty.
We got to get tough, tough. Now, I wonder if much like when he talked about his musings about the gun violence and he talk about, due process, doing that later, I think he has the same attitude with killing the drug dealers.
Yeah, due process comes after the execution, Dom.
Well, he likes the tough guys, man.
He's Judge Dredd.
Right, judge, jury, and executioner. Let's keep going on. Crudy, we need tough action. We need to kill these drug dealers. No more committees. Next one, please, Brian.
This isn't about let's get everybody and have dinners and let's have everybody go to a blue ribbon committee and everybody gets a medal for frankly talking and doing nothing. This is about winning a very, very tough problem.
A very tough problem. So no committees, no thought process, a new angle, a new direction, a new effort by President Donald Trump.
Brian, you've got something you're motioning. Nope.
Let's keep going. On the
I think
sound.
he's calling for the bunt.
The bun?
I thought he's giving me the bunt sign.
The bunt. No bunting here, man. Home runs only on the
Come
Devil's
on, man.
Advocates.
Look at a guy like me. Maybe Dom bunts. I don't bunt.
Swing for the fences, Crudy. Maybe what we need, Crudy. Remember the Just Say No commercials? Remember? Maybe we need some more commercials. Perhaps Donald Trump, maybe a member of his family will
Dominic,
be the spokesperson.
This radio show, you're great on drugs.
Let's go. Cut 16. Trump today on opioids.
so that kids seeing those commercials during the right shows on television or wherever, the internet, when they see these commercials, say, I don't want any part of it.
They're going to be such good commercials that they're not going to want any part of it. And finally, lawsuits against drug makers. I thought this was interesting. Here's what Trump had to say.
The Department of Justice recently created a task force to coordinate investigations and lawsuits against manufacturers and other bad actors that harm our citizens.
Well, we will speak with Margaret Dawn. She is the county corporate counsel from right here in Milwaukee Council. I know Milwaukee County. I know Milwaukee County is suing the drug makers. I'm not at all clear what Trump's policy would be. I mean, I would say if he could make money on these drugs, he probably would, right? Any self-enrichment that Donald Trump can do. I've never, to date, seen him turn against a corporation. Not when there are profits to be made.
Well, right. And, of course, Republicans and certainly some Dems, the pharmaceutical corporations in this country, very powerful. But, yeah, are we going to start killing, what if you're a stockholder? Are you responsible then for Purdue Manufacturing when they rolled out with OxyContin and were fraudulent about the massive negative addictive side effects of this drug? Are we going to line them all up and shoot them too?
How much stock do I own, hypothetically
How about
speaking?
the traders? How about the banks involved? I mean, at what point do you stop? Because these, you can now, Crudy, in this wonderful day and age in which we live, buy stock in your drug dealer.
Dominic Trump is back. He promised he'd go back to New Hampshire. He's there today. We're going to have a gentleman from New Hampshire. He's Kraig Moss. Once upon a time, he was the Trump Troubadour, Dom. No more, he claims. Also in this big show, Jim Santelli. He's a former U.S. attorney. Certainly going to talk about the firing of Mike McCabe. Dom, I've done a lot of research this weekend as well. CambridgeAnalytica, this headline, these stories, the reason the IT sector of the market is crashing. Well, there are connections to Scott Walker.
What?
And also Margaret Dawn. She is the corporate counsel of Milwaukee County. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates. We're just getting started with this really big show.
I would bring back waterboarding, and I'd bring back a hell of a lot worse than waterboarding. We need to let people know, you come into our schools, you're going to be dead.
I am judge, jury, and executioner.
The American dream is dead.
Hi, I'm Crudy. I'm here with Bill Carroll, president of Teamsters Local 344. Bill, why are you union? Teamster strong.
Well, Crudy, our strength comes from our membership. The Teamsters are North America's strongest labor union with 1.4 million members.
Bill, what does the Teamsters do for the next generation?
The same thing that the Teamsters have done for the last 100 years, assisting groups of workers in negotiating improvements in their wages, hours, and working conditions.
Where do people go if they want to know more about the Teamsters, more about joining the union?
There's three easy options. They can call Local 344 at 414-258-4545. They can contact us through our website. That's local344.org. Local, the number is 344.org, or they can contact us through the Local 344 Facebook page.
Be union strong. Join Teamsters 344. Be like Crudy. Be like News Talk 1510 AM. Stand with the unions. Join the Teamsters. Local344.org.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your basement. There's a pair of overalls that overall you're not so into anymore. A perfectly good laptop that hasn't sat in your lap in months. And even more stuff, but still no jobs? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed, and they're the stuff inside your stuff. Even inside that winter coat that moved with you to Phoenix. Our job is to unlock those jobs, and it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover guitar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
I'm a retired school psychologist, and helping people was my thing. After my stroke, when Meals on Wheels started, I was on the other end of the stick, so to speak. My name is Julius Gaines, creative writer, poet, photographer.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
You wanted to see me?
Yes, please, have a seat. So here's the thing. When this company brought you on, we took a chance on you. You didn't have that 4-year college degree we typically look for.
Right.
But we gave you a shot anyway. And since then, you've worked incredibly hard and given it your all.
Thanks.
You've been an important asset to the team, but I don't think you can be an intern here anymore. We want to hire you.
You're serious?
Absolutely.
Find your next great employee. Introduce yourself to the grads of life. Who are they? Talent worth knowing about. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
I won't let you down.
I know.
Don't miss out on a resource many innovative companies have already discovered. Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Please tune in Saturday, March 24th from noon to 3 p.m. when Earl Ingram anchors special coverage of the 10th Annual Wisconsin Grassroots Festival from Mazomanie. People Organizing for Solutions. Speakers include Lisa Graves, John Nichols, Matt Rothschild, Congressman Mark Pocan, and Senator Tammy Baldwin. Tune in right here on Wisconsin's Resistance Radio Network, Saturday, March 24th, noon to 3.
Stomping for the Trump man once again. Stomping for the Trump man
And
once
we are back. Thank you for
again.
listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show live on Wisconsin's Resistance Radio Network, streaming live on YouTube and Facebook. We're on Twitter at Devil Radio, and on the phones toll free 844-967-2789.
Dominic, we will be joined live via phone by Kraig Moss. He's the man you hear singing. Once upon a time, fashioned himself the Trump Troubadour. His new book, Trump Troubadour, No More. Pre-orders on Amazon. He'll join us. A busy schedule, this man. I know he does lots of the national shows. We appreciate him making some time for this little product today, Dom. But you made an interesting point right before, well, during the break. Guess the rest of you didn't hear it. Dom saves all his best work for the commercials. But you asked about, right here in the state of Wisconsin, Candy Nygren, John Nygren, the Joint Finance Committee co-chair. He's a Republican, and of course, a lot of the opioid laws here in the state of Wisconsin are now, with sort of a tip of the cap to John Nygren and his daughter's circumstance. Well, Candy Nygren, I understand, Dom, and you pointed out, I think she was the supplier of a young person that may have OD'd, may have died.
Yeah.
Now, we've heard about Lenny bias cases. My wife got stuck on a jury on one of the very first Lenny bias death cases in the state of Wisconsin, where the dealer was being held accountable under criminal prosecution for an overdose that led to death. But, Trump talks about death to the drug dealers. Well, fair enough. I mean, I'm not saying I'm advocating for this position like Trump might, but how much you got to be moving? And what drugs?
Well,
does someone have to die first, or just simply you get caught with some heroin or cocaine or what, marijuana? I mean, what qualifies you for death in Trump's America, Dom?
Here's what he said today. If we don't get tough with the drug dealers, we're wasting our time. And that toughness includes the death penalty. This is reporting from thehill.com. A draft of the proposal leaked to Political showed the White House was examining the death penalty as an option in, quote, certain cases where opioid, including fentanyl-related drug dealing and trafficking are directly responsible for death, unquote. That's what the draft proposal leaked to Political said. The Hill goes on to report that the Department of Justice instead will only seek the death penalty in cases where it's already legal to do so. So the draft of the proposal leaked by to Political would indicate that, yes, Nygren's daughter here in the state of Wisconsin.
Anyone that was responsible for the death of another through supplying the drugs that actually caused the overdose or death.
Directly related, directly responsible for death. Yeah. That's my interpretation.
Ooh, that seems quite harsh, Tom. I mean, I'm not advocating for people dealing drugs, but, you know, the average heroin dealer, at least in the state of Wisconsin, as I understand it, Tom, I'm not going to claim to be any expert. I don't even know if I've seen heroin. But the average dealer is really dealing to use their...
Probably user, yeah.
Yeah, they're users. They're
deal
people.
A little bit, get mine for free.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't think the average heroin dealer, at least not in this state, is the big kingpin. And how big a kingpin do you have to be, and for how long? One death, one mistake, first bag you ever sold, then you're subject to death?
Well, and again, some of the sound from Trump today is pointing out, he says 90% of the heroin comes, through the southern borders. Well, number one, what are we doing in Afghanistan? Number two, the reason that there is the demand for the heroin is mostly, I would suggest, that people get hooked on the legal drugs, the pharmaceutical grade drugs, and then their script gets canceled or they're no longer available for the pain med and they're addicted. Well, what do? Well, hell, you can get the other stuff is cheap and it's around.
Buddy, you and I have got a good friend that passed opioid OD.
Yeah, Bobby died.
And as far as I remember, that wasn't heroin. That wasn't sticking a needle in his arm.
Nope.
That was pills.
Lots of different pills.
Somebody wrote a script for those.
Yeah, he had it, and we specifically talked about it before his passing. I mean, we've been friends for a long time, Crudy, as you know. And he told me he had a doctor who was writing scripts. That's how we got it.
Ask your doctor if he's going to die if he overprescribes your drugs. Come back with us. Kraig Moss, his son died. He used to be the Trump Troubadour. The Trump Troubadour no more. More devil's advocates when we come right back.
Trump. Pants. Trump. Pants.
Probably wouldn't be here if it weren't for the American worker.
Listen and imagine. It takes 5 seconds to send a text, and for those 5 seconds, you're driving blind. Life is worth more than a text. Stay alive. Don't text and drive.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
Driving means
freedom,
exploration,
fun,
pride,
flexibility,
travel,
protection,
friendship,
escape,
independence.
Distracted driving means
danger,
recklessness,
irresponsible,
chaos, police, devastation, injury,
tears, death.
Safe driving means staying alert and staying alive.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
The bridge is out, and there are scat holes everywhere. Come on. What's wrong with you? Listen to Wisconsin's Resistance Radio Network.
I'm afraid right now for the future of my children's generation and those to come.
In this age of mass school shootings, Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker offers the same bold agenda of the National Rifle Association.
Make sure you remember in your thoughts and more importantly in your prayers.
While Walker offers platitudes, he blocks meaningful gun safety legislation.
It's really an honor to work with the NRA, not only in my state, but across the country. And I'm proud of my A+ ranking as a governor.
Walker weakened the gun laws in Wisconsin, and then he got $3.5 million worth of NRA support.
There have been men and women of courage who've been willing to stand up and think more about the future of their children and their grandchildren than they thought about their own futures.
Scott Walker, you are not one of them. This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org, p4ppc.org.
Hi, this is Brad Saug, owner of Zero Res Madison Carpet Cleaning. Zero Res is the best new technology in carpet cleaning. We have a patented process using empowered water, a high-tech process in which we force the water to act like soap. It doesn't want to stay in that state. It's jacked up and it's angry and it wants to hit the dirt and then it neutralizes. When we're done, all that's left in your carpet is just light moisture. In the end, you get the cleanest, greenest, healthiest carpet cleaning available. Call us at 848-9000. Zero Res. Spell it backward or forward. It's the right way to clean.
It's a lot easier to measure how many times students use a semicolon correctly in an essay.
Educated educators talking education.
Than it is to measure how many wonderful ideas are in that essay.
Busted Pencils.
There is no teacher shortage.
With Dr. Tim Slecker.
There is a teacher exit.
Featuring Matt Damon's mom.
You want to know what my mom would say?
We've had an intrusion into education.
Busted Pencils Radio. Saturdays at 11 on Resistance Radio.
For Wisconsin's Resistance Radio Network, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines. About 100 homes in the town of Peshtigo, Wisconsin are receiving bottled water from the Tyco Fire Products Company after their well water was contaminated by chemicals from a nearby firefighting training facility. This Saturday is the March for Our Lives in Washington, D.C. and other cities across the United States. In Milwaukee, the march will start at the county courthouse at 901 North 9th Street at 10 a.m., then proceed to Milwaukee City Hall, where several speakers will address the students, teachers, and supporters. The event is scheduled to last until 3 p.m., and everyone is welcome. And the Bucks are in Cleveland tonight to take on the Cavaliers. Mostly sunny today, and then partly cloudy tonight, lows in the mid-20s. For Wisconsin's Resistance Radio Network, I'm Stu Daniels.
The Devil's Advocates, radio for the 99%.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Dominic, we've been joined by a fine guest, not for the first time. His name, Kraig Moss. First met him at the Donald Trump rally in Janesville, Wisconsin. I believe that was your 18th Trump rally. Kraig, my understanding, you went on to attend like 45 Donald Trump rallies, man.
That's it, 45, and from there we went across Indiana and Indianapolis, and just zigzagged out there in Montana, and eventually out to California. I think it was 5 in California with that.
Kraig, you're something of a talented musician. You fashioned yourself as something of the Trump Troubadour once upon a time. You played the music. We played it for our audience. You don't play the same tune anymore, Kraig.
No, I don't. I'll tell you what, though. It's just there's been a lot of things happen since the Trump administration has gotten into play, and the first thing that just struck me was the broken promises. You know, Donald Trump came on and promised everybody that he was going to lower medical costs, he was going to lower the overall costs, lower deductibles, and increase coverages. And the coverages of the insurance companies was supposed to include treatment for expanded treatment for opioid abuse. Now, none of that has happened. Now, he also said he wasn't going to attack Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security, those three specifically. Well, you know, with the new proposed budget cuts, we're looking at a $266 billion cut in Medicare, a $1.1 trillion cut in the Medicaid program over the next 10 years, and 1 out of every 4 people on Medicaid receive services for opioid addiction, and the $72 billion for Social Security. Now, it's Social Security disability insurance. It's people who have paid into the system, have become disabled, and they receive SSDI services. But those are going away. There's so many programs. You know, the thing is, I'm just livid. I'm livid with this whole thing. The first time I ever voted, I go in. What happens? You know, he takes away. He does not follow through with anything that he promised American people. I found out that he was sending out polls to everybody and asking them specific questions. And then those people were targeted and sent emails saying that this is exactly what the president stands for. Exactly what, agreeing with exactly what you answered that poll with. But no, I don't sing the same tune, and it's just one lie after another. And now we've got death to all drug dealers, and there are some good proposals in this new health care. Believe me, having their first responders having their locks on their person at all times and being provided, that you can't get any better. And limiting the amount of prescription pills that are going to be opioids that are prescribed at one given time, maybe a 5-day supply, 10-day supply. I mean, if a person's got a huge back injury, he's going to get a 30-day supply, but they're trying to get a grip on that, and that's a good move. But the death to the drug dealers, I'm here to say that I'm sure that, the CEOs of these big pharmacies, these big pharmaceutical companies that are pumping out these Oxycontins to these pill mills, they're off the list. As a matter of fact, one of the executive orders that was put in I think it said that they do not encourage or support the DEA agencies for going in and seizing, going into these pharmaceutical companies, these larger ones. And I'm talking about these pharmaceutical companies that are whining and dining the doctors and the pharmacists. And yeah, there's bad apples out there. There's some bad eggs out there, that get caught up in the system, and all they're looking for is money. But the majority, I'm going out on a limb, I guess here, but I'd say there's a majority of street level drug dealers that are addicts, and they sell drugs in order to support their own habit. They've fallen to the dragon. They've fallen prey to the dragon, and they sell the drugs. Now, I don't condone that. I lost my son to heroin. Okay, I should be the one that wants him dead, but I realize, and I don't know what everybody's religious beliefs out here, but my pastor talked to me. I realize that it takes more of a man to reach down and try to help somebody off the ground than it does to beat them down when they're weak. And I am wholeheartantly against I'm for doing something with these folks that are getting caught with tons of fentanyl and heroin. These large traffickers. Now, death to them. I don't know. That doesn't sound like such a bad idea if you get caught with 5 tons of fentanyl. There's no other reason to have that stuff other than bad. And but I'm also here to say that it's all our borders we need to protect, not just our southern. I don't think the major drug problem is because you got an illegal immigrant running across the southern border with a backpack full of drugs. I mean, there's a lot of stuff coming from that southern border, but there's also containers that come in on the California coast, the East Coast, and it's just coming in from everywhere. But, we do have a problem. 64,000 people. Since Trump has become, and his administration has taken over, there's been a 30% spike in emergency room treatments for opioid, for heroin overdoses and opioid overdoses. So we've got a huge problem on our hand, and I think he mentioned something like $6 billion or something, and it's just not enough money to take care of the problem that we're facing in this nation.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Got a fine guest live via phone. He's a friend of ours. He is Kraig Moss. He's joined us before. Kraig, you mentioned your son fell victim to the opioid epidemic. Obviously, someone supplied those drugs to your son. Kraig, as a father, I think many would feel like you would be justified in wanting vengeance against whoever effectively provided the means of your son's death. How do you feel, Kraig, about, you mentioned the street level dealers, but you also mentioned the big dealers. Well, someone was the big dealer before it got to the street level. But Kraig, where's your heart and head at on this issue?
When this first happened and I lost my son, I lost my only son, and he was everything to me. I wanted to strangle this man myself. And I went undercover or started parking my truck down at this corner or around the corner from known drug activity areas, and I would call the sheriff
the local sheriff, and I tell them what was going on. They say, "Well, what are you doing?" I says, "I'm doing your job. I'm doing what you should be doing, is sitting in an unmarked car, and all you have to do is sit down in this area, and you're going to find it." I said, I just saw a drug deal, and I'm just letting you know. And there's a car that came in here, and now they're going. I'm following them down the street. They're going to another house. And at first, the lady reprimanded, but as time went by, and I did that, and I caused some people to get arrested. They had like 7 people, they got that was arrested for a big heroin ring that was uncovered here, and maybe some of my doing, I don't know, but I'm no angel. I grew out in 1969. I was 10 years old, and so this stuff everything was exposed to me, and the heroin was there, but it was over there. The people that came back from Vietnam, it seems as though there was more of them that were into that stuff, and that just seems to be an era where it was first introduced. But you didn't go in that direction. There was pot, there was beer, there might have been a little coke, but it's just where am I at right now? I'm just, after I hear these lies. And over again, there's broken promises being made, and so that's made me mad. So I take my vengeance out on disclosing this and talking about the flagrant promises that were made during the campaign trail, and then to have them do exactly the opposite. But my son, I miss him every day. And as far as the gentleman, this dealer that sold my son his dope wealth, he's been in and out of jail, been in and out of prisons, and killing him is not going to bring my son back, and wishing him dead. And when I hear about, you don't think about it. Like I wanted harm to come to him, and I was ready to do it myself. I really was. I was so mad. But now, when I think about it, when I hear the president talk about execution for drug dealers, all of a sudden reality sets in, and you say, you talk about it, and I know there was some senators, and there was, some people within his staff, within the president's staff, that heard what he had said, and they said, "Well, I don't think you need to take that seriously." But it turns out he was. They were saying, "Well, I think he just said that off the cuff." They were hoping he did. Can you imagine the guy going back from the White House and then going back to his state, to his family, sitting down? Well, we're gonna start killing off the people that are dealing these drugs here. It's almost like a legal way of controlling population. It seems as though I just if they focused on the big hitters, I think that's fine. But to say that if you're selling more than 2 or 3 grams on the street level, you're going to be facing the death penalty. There's just something wrong with that whole thing. We don't want to be a Singapore or North Korea or China, or Philippines.
Well, Kraig,
where they.
It's interesting you bring that up, because I think if you look at the kinds of leaders that the president is fond of, the Philippine leader comes to mind, and that's what he's been known for, is waxing drug dealers, or those at least accused. Let me ask you this question, though. It seems like a lot of these policies are going to try to impact the supply. But as long as we have the demand that we have in this country, there will always be supply if there's money to be made. We have an insatiable demand for all kinds of drugs and narcotics, legal and illegal, in this country. Kraig, what do you think impacts that the most? Is it a sense of helplessness, of not being able to get ahead, of being in a rut? What is the issue, in your opinion, with our country and the amount of drug use that we have?
Well, we know that this whole the opioid is just with the monies. The heroin's a different story. The heroin from the different addicts that I've talked to across the United States that have reached out to me. Now they have indicated that, like for instance in Colorado, since they made marijuana legal. Okay, now all of a sudden, all this bunk Mexican pot, there's no market for it. So all of a sudden, the cartels are not making a ton of money. They're not making the same money and it's all businesses. Before they had so much pot coming in, and heroin, and crystal meth, and ecstasy and pills, whatever it is that they're bringing into the United States. But the presence of heroin on the street corners have increased since pot has become legal, because there's not a market for the ragweed that comes out of California. There's not a market for it. You get all these high strains, and you can buy it in candies, and it's just there, and so it's cost the cartels a tremendous amount of money. So what do? They take and flood the streets with heroin. I mean, that's just what some of the observations that have taken place. But it's just, as far as the opioids, it's just money, man. These big pharmaceutical companies are pumping this out, turning their head the other way when they're. But they got West Virginia. West Virginia got enough. They got more OxyContins delivered to West Virginia in 1 year than if everybody in West Virginia were to be taking this stuff, they couldn't consume it in 10 years. I mean, this is the quantity. There's a small town of 2,300 that got like 6 million pills last year. I mean, it's just crazy that people are turning their heads, and it's all about the money. Donald Trump had an issue with a drug dealer. He was friends with a drug dealer, but back in the 80s. And he brought in a bunch of ecstasy from Belgium. And what happened was he wrote a letter on his behalf. Why? Because his parents were rich and wealthy, and they were doing land deals, and they were using his helicopter going around. And so the thing, he got him off on a lighter sentence, and he got transferred to a court in New Jersey. Guess who was the judge at the court in New Jersey? It was Donald Trump's sister. But with her credit, she excused herself from the situation because she also rode those helicopters, and it had nothing to do with it. But anyhow, I'm just saying, if you have a lot of money, you're in the thing. Listen to this.
Yeah,
figure.
make your
$2 trillion. $2 trillion have been Trump has offered tax cuts to his rich and wealthy friends. $2 trillion. One company alone, $56 billion that they don't have to pay because with a tax cut they don't have to pay. And he's just helping his rich. If he had campaigned and said, people of America, I'm going to take $2 trillion and benefit my rich wealthy friends. And at the same time, what we're going to do is we're going to cut you out and you out. We're not going to help the poor people that get HEAP. Around here it's called HEAP, where they help with the fuel oil, they help with the propane. These programs are going out the door. No more Head Start programs. No more Meals on Wheels. Goodness gracious! If you're used to getting one hot meal a week delivered by Meals on Wheels, that program's out. And all these programs that help these folks that are most vulnerable in this country, they're out. And if he had campaigned like that, he'd never become president. But he sucked me in hook, line, and sinker, and I went for it. And I feel bad about it, but I'm not ashamed to say, you know what? I'm not afraid to stand up and say, you know what? I made a mistake, but believe me, I'm in this now, and I'm going to do the very best I can to make sure that these lies and these broken campaign promises are brought out to the American people, so we don't make the same mistake again in 2020.
Kraig, you're an interesting guy. You've led an interesting life just in the time we've known you, sir. I know you've written a book. Tell the audience about your book. How can they pre-order the book, Kraig? Trump Troubadour No More.
Yeah, it's Trump Troubador No More, and you can find it on Amazon.com. If you went on Amazon.com and just typed in the search engine there, Trump Troubadour No More, you can pre-order the book, and there's a description about what's in the book. It's, my co-writer was a gentleman by the name of David Zimmerman, and he's written quite a few books, actually, and I was very privileged and honored to have him be a part of this writing. My literary agent is Diane Nine Speakers out of Washington, D.C. But Trump Troubadour No More tells about, it covers my life in the beginning, it covers my son's life, and the bad decisions that he made, that I made, and so we... it's a good book. I took a lot of time and effort to put a lot of thought behind it, and had a lot of help with David Zimmerman. So we will be hoping that the folks, can go ahead and look that up.
Just tell them, Kraig, go buy the book. We've been honored and privileged to host you. Kraig Moss, thank you so much, sir.
Very welcome. Pleasure being here with you again.
Folks, we are the Devil's Advocates. Phone lines open, toll free to you, 967-2789.
The President of the United States has your back 100%.
I wish you weren't a liar.
Do you own a rental property, or would you like to partner with a rental investment team? Call the pros you can trust at CCL Management. Rental expertise second to none, a general contractor on staff to direct repairs and improvements, and real estate brokerage services tailored to the small investor. If you're ready to invest in rental property or just need professionals to manage your real estate portfolio, call us, CCL Management, at 608-833-0009 or visit us on the web at cclmanagement.com.
I'm Glendale Mayor Brian Kennedy, running for re-election in April. You can learn more about my campaign at kennedyforglendalemayor.com. I'm joined today by my friend Matt Flynn, former state Democratic Party chair and candidate for governor. Matt, why are you running for governor?
We used to have honest government, clean water, and high wages in this state. Now under Walker, we have corrupt government, dirty water, and low wages. I'm going to change that.
You can vote for Brian Kennedy for mayor on April 3rd in Glendale and Matt Flynn for governor in the Democratic primary on August 14th. Paid for by Kennedy for Glendale.
Businesses today thrive and survive with technology. At 5-9s, we provide businesses with the IT tools they need to stay relevant. We offer enterprise-level solutions at competitive prices. I'm Todd Stryker, President and CEO of 5-9s. Let us manage your IT so you can focus on more important things, like running your business. Check us out at 5nines.com. That's the number 5nines.com.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life, young adults of unique determination and experience, an ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
So, Jesse, why should someone buying a home pay for an agent when they can go online or call the number on a for sale sign?
Great questions. First of all, never call the number on a sign to see a home. That's the seller's agent, and they don't represent your interests. If they show you a home outside of an open house, you forfeit your ability to have someone negotiate in your corner at no cost to you.
Well, with interest rates still at historic lows, how can buyers still get a great deal and protect their rights?
Step 1, find a buyer's agent that you trust. Your agent will best find the home that fits your needs, anticipate problems, and negotiate on your behalf from offer through closing day. And most home listing contracts stipulate that the seller's agent pays for the buyer's commission.
Solidarity Realty. They're real, they're solid, they're honest. Whether buying or selling in Madison or Dane County, call Solidarity Realty, 608-284-9311, or find them at solidarityrealty.com.
Have a drink at Regano's Roman Coin. This neighborhood corner tavern is as classic as the street it occupies. Family owned and operated since 1966, Regano's Roman Coin is located in a former Pabst Tide House on historic Brady Street, serving an array of craft beers with a focus on Wisconsin breweries. Also, weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, seasonal sporting events, parties hosted for all occasions, and pet friendly. Open 11 a.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday, closed on Monday. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's pet friendly, cash only order and classic corner tavern.
Tune in to The Resistance, Wisconsin's Resistance Radio. Start your weekday off with the Earl Ingram Show from 7 to 9 a.m. Next is the Stephanie Miller Show from 9 to 11. Then from 11 to 2, it's the Tom Hartman Program. At 2 o'clock, it's 414 Wisconsin. Then from 3 to 6, it's the Devil's Advocates. Mandatory listening. Wisconsin's Resistance Radio.
Charged, never convicted. Dom and Croat are the Devil's Advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show live on Wisconsin's Resistance Radio Network. You can give us a call, 844-967-2789.
Dominic, thank you to Kraig Moss, a fine guest. We've got another one coming very soon. He's James Santel, former U.S. Attorney, Eastern District of Wisconsin. I'm going to turn our attention to Mueller time. And Margaret Dawn, she is the county corporate counsel right here in Milwaukee County. They are suing the pharmaceutical companies. We'll pick up the opioid conversation again in the happy hour. But, Dom, I got to tell you, Trump's hired a new attorney, and this guy is a conspiracy theorist. Here's what he says. There was a brazen plot to illegally exonerate Hillary Clinton, and if she didn't win the election, to then frame Donald Trump with a falsely created crime. This guy, Joe DiGenova, apparently you just go out and you spew some conspiracy theories, but if they go with the narrative the president's trying to put forth, then you get hired?
Right, that's his support, man. He's a very, very loyal man, Trump.
New York Times reporting that he will not be the lead, but he will be a strong addition to the legal team over at Trump Central.
Crudy, also over the weekend, Gowdy on CNN. Trey Gowdy, outgoing Rep. Trey Gowdy on Sunday bristled at President Donald Trump's attorney, John Dowd, calling the Justice Department to end the special counsel probe. Here is Gowdy in his own words.
To suggest that Mueller should shut down and that all he is looking at is collusion, if you have an innocent client, Mr. Dowd, act like it. Russia attacked our country. Let Special Counsel Mueller figure that out. And if you believe, as we found, there's no evidence of collusion, you should want Special Counsel Mueller to take all the time and have all the independence he needs to do his job.
Jim Santel, former U.S. attorney, joining us next. I understand Trump's lawyer was praying that Robert Mueller would just wrap things up.
Yeah, just be done.
Sort of floating that idea out there to karma and the universe. Well, we'll float a few ideas when we come back. More Devil's Advocates. James Santel, former U.S. attorney. We're going to turn our attention to Trump collusion and the firing of Andrew McCabe.
Didn't do it. Lawyer f***ed me.
I swear, this whole thing's a setup, a scam, a frame job.
Wisconsin's doing terribly. The roads are a disaster because they don't have any money to rebuild them. They're borrowing money like crazy. They projected a $1 billion surplus, and it turns out to be a deficit of $2.2 billion. The schools are a disaster. The hospitals and education is a disaster. And when I see Scott Walker with his little motorcycle and puts his helmet on and he gets off and he makes a speech, but he's always riding like he gets off a bike like he's a big tough guy, or a little tough guy. Their lobbyists, their special interests, and their donors will start calling. They gave you $1 million to your campaign, and this one gave you $5 million, and this one, you have to do it. You know what he's going to say? Okay, I'll do it.
Mr. Trump, you're using the talking points of the Democrats, and as we all know, that
I'm using
failed
facts.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org, p4ppc.org.
My name is Adam Holmes, and I'm proud to be union.
Adam, you're Director of Training for Painters District Council 7. What do you do?
I'm making sure that we're investing in our members. We're providing the safest and best trained painters, glazers, drywall finishers, and trade show workers in the industry, and we also do that at no cost to the taxpayers.
Why hire unions?
Because it costs less to be safe. We keep the contractor on the right side of OSHA and help keep the workmen's comp rates affordable. Join us, Painters and Allied Trades, District Council 7.
My name is Lola Silvestri, and I'm going to be 95 this year. I was very independent. I fell, and I had to have Meals on Wheels. America, let's do lunch.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
You are listening to 1510 AM WRRD Waukesha, Milwaukee, and 1580 AM WTTN Columbus, Wisconsin's Resistance Radio Network.
Don't fire Mueller. Put the dealers to death. I'm Michael Toscano. After 2 days of increasingly heated tweets from President Trump, some Republican senators are putting out the word to the White House. Don't even think of firing Russia Special Counsel Robert Mueller. They include Utah's Orrin Hatch.
It would be the stupidest thing the president could do as far as.
Retiring Senator Bob Corker said it would throw the Senate into total upheaval. Democratic senators have been calling on Majority Leader Mitch McConnell to allow a vote on protecting Mueller's work, but he stayed quiet. The number 2 Senate Republican, John Cornyn, says firing Mueller would produce unintended consequences, but he does not believe it will happen. Speaking of consequences, the president wants the most serious consequences for drug dealers spreading the opioid epidemic, the president calling for the death penalty during a stop in New Hampshire.
The ultimate penalty has to be the death penalty. Now, maybe our country's not ready for that. It's possible. It's possible that our country's not ready for that. And I can understand it, maybe. Although, personally, I can't understand that.
The first pedestrian killed by a self-driving car is 49-year-old Elaine Herzberg, hit in Tempe, Arizona by an Uber vehicle undergoing testing. Uber says it's freezing the program in all American cities. First, it was the state Supreme Court today. Now the U.S. Supreme Court rejecting Republican demands to toss a new congressional map in Pennsylvania that replaced one favoring the GOP.
The U.S. Supreme Court is keeping in place a revised map of the state's congressional districts, affirming a decision made by a 3-judge panel in Harrisburg earlier today. Incumbents and potential challengers are circulating petitions around the state now in order to get on the May 15th primary ballot and will use the new district map to do so. Back in January, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruled that the map the GOP had carved out in 2011 was a case of unconstitutional gerrymandering. I'm John Solness.
Police had asked residents living near the site of the latest Austin, Texas explosion to remain in their homes until 2 o'clock local time, but the area remained on lockdown. I'm Michael Toscano.
I was on Zero Res Madison's Facebook page the other day, and they have almost 2,000 testimonials from local customers. Apparently, I'm not the only one stoked on how cool this company is. A green technology that actually works better and doesn't cost more. It's a no-brainer. I'm in. We are starting our own Devil's Advocates revolution to free your carpets from harsh chemicals and soaps. Call Zero Res today and ask for the Dom and Crude special 608-848-9000 or schedule online at ZeroResMadison.com. Zero Res, spell it forward or backward. It's the right way to clean.
The Devil's Advocates.
U.S. Senator Ron Johnson, our friend, live via phone. What about simply raising the age of weapons purchases to 21 years of age?
We're sending 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds over to Afghanistan, and they're dying. They ought to be able to vote. They ought to be able to have a beer, and they ought to be able to buy a gun to hunt with as well.
Are you suggesting we lower the drinking age?
No. Can't they do that now? What is the age nowadays?
It's 21, sir.
We drink when we toast. We toast when we drink.
Yikes.
Mississippi Governor Phil Bryant today signing the nation's toughest anti-abortion bill, banning abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy with no exemptions for incest and rape. The nation's largest retailers are asking President Trump not to slap new tariffs on China.
President Trump has already put steep tariffs on steel and aluminum as the administration weighs what could be $30 billion in penalties on other Chinese-made goods. Retailers, including Walmart, Target, and Costco, argue that could hurt working families who shop in their stores. A letter signed by 49 retailers says they understand the need to protect tech and intellectual property, but the impact on consumer prices should be carefully considered before clamping more penalties on a huge provider of less expensive products. Jan Johnson, Washington.
On Wall Street today, a big drop in tech stocks. The Dow closing down 335 points, the S&P falling 39, the Nasdaq fell 137. I'm Michael.
Hello, I'm State Senator LaTanya Johnson. Making sure Wisconsin residents continue to have equal and fair access to voting is very important to me. Here are some key things you should know. Wisconsin requires a photo ID, and chances are you already have what you need to vote. A Wisconsin DMV-issued driver's license. You can use this even if it's revoked or suspended. A Wisconsin DMV-issued identification card. A military ID issued by the U.S. Uniformed Services, or a U.S. passport book or card. You can use these items even if they're expired, as long as the expiration date is after the most recent general election held on November 8, 2016. For more information about registering to vote, please visit myvote.wi.gov or call the Wisconsin Election Commission Help Desk at 608-261-2028. We won't be taken for granted.
This message was brought to you by WRRD 1510 AM.
For Wisconsin's Resistance Radio Network, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines. Leaders from both parties, including Senator Tammy Baldwin, Governor Walker, and former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder, are now calling for a response from the federal government after it was reported last week that Russian Twitter trolls posted racially divisive tweets during the Sherman Park unrest in the summer of 2016 and posted tweets that supported the Trump campaign in Wisconsin during the presidential election. And about 100 homes in the town of Peshtigo, Wisconsin, are receiving bottled water from the Tyco Fire Products Company after their well water was contaminated by chemicals from a nearby firefighting training facility. Mostly sunny today and then partly cloudy tonight, lows in the mid-20s. Tomorrow, partly sunny, highs in the mid-30s. And for Wednesday, mostly cloudy with highs in the upper 30s. For Wisconsin's Resistance Radio Network, I'm Stu Daniels.
The following program is a presentation of DC Communications, LLC. Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back. Hour 2 of the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dom, we're joined by a fine guest right from the top. He's James Santel. He is a former U.S. attorney from the Eastern District of Wisconsin, a wonderful resource whenever we talk about Trump collusion and what's going on with Mueller. James, thank you so much for joining us once again.
Gentlemen, good to be with you again this afternoon.
Thank you, sir.
Well, before we talk about the firing of Andrew McCabe, let's talk about the hiring by the Trump legal team of a guy named Joe DiGenova, or something to that effect, sir. He apparently is claiming Trump has been framed by the FBI, or at least that's the conspiracy theory that seemingly won him the job. In any way, shape, or form, can you believe that that could be the case, or that this might be a legal theory for defense, sir?
We've talked about this before, and my position, I think that of most reasonable people remains the same. The reality is that the FBI and the Mueller investigation and his very good and expert group of attorneys and investigators is pursuing this as you'd want any good, balanced investigative and prosecutorial team to do. The sense that they're out to frame someone, that they're out to charge individuals unlawfully or without evidence is simply ridiculous. And I do recognize, as your question suggests, that perhaps this is just the first volley, if you will, in DiGenova's attempt to defend the president. But it falls, to my mind, and should fall on deaf ears for every American who hears it.
Jim, my understanding, Trump has been tweeting out a lot about the conflicts of interest he perceives with the Mueller investigative team. 13 Democrats, something of that effect. My understanding, Mueller is not supposed to consider the politics of his hires, but setting that aside, isn't a conflict of interest a perspective rationale that Trump could use to eventually fire Mueller as the special counsel?
You know, this issue of political allegiance and alliance, again, I think is also a red herring. I'll say about my own experience, and I think that of most other U.S. attorneys. When we interview people to become assistant U.S. attorneys throughout the country, one of the questions we never, ever, ever ask is, what is your political affiliation? Or the kinds of things the president has asked people in his own cabinet and his own administration recently, did you vote for me? Or who did you vote for? You don't do that because the whole purpose and mission of investigations and prosecutions, legitimate ones in this country, is that you are apolitical. You're not tied to any particular party. You know, it's also significant, too, it's been pointed out in many, many areas, Bob Mueller himself has been a Republican, is probably still a Republican. Jim Comey is a Republican. Others, plainly, who are involved in this process. Rod Rosenstein is a Republican. All of these folks, to the extent we look at their political affiliations, are not on the opposite side. They're not Democrats. But the point, again, remains the same. They're also not acting in a partisan way. They're not acting because the Republican Party or the platform indicates they should do this or support the president. They're acting in the way that the evidence leads and supporting legitimate and decent investigations that need to proceed and need to go forward without this kind of attack by the President of the United States of America, which, again, I think is unprecedented and wildly inappropriate.
Jim Santel, let's talk about the firing of Andrew McCabe. Happened, Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, apparently pulled the trigger. Trump tweeted out gleefully thereafter. My understanding prior, Trump had indeed asked Andrew McCabe who he voted for. At one point when Comey was fired and McCabe apparently allowed him to fly back on a governmental flight, Trump was so enraged he told McCabe to ask his wife what it felt like to be a loser. Here's my question. Is this firing, to your opinion, Jim, as I guess I'm inserting my opinion, sir, I think this was to undermine the credibility of Andrew McCabe as a witness to what it is that James Comey experienced, perhaps under the obstruction of justice from the President of the United States?
Our president continues to make these attacks, these broadside attacks upon individuals and institutions that, again, I'm losing adjectives, running out of adjectives here to describe things other than inappropriate and unprecedented and simply not good for the country. An attack upon Andrew McCabe, I do not know him. I do know Bob Mueller. I worked with Bob Mueller. I know Jim Comey. I worked with him in the past, as we all do, apolitically. These kinds of attacks are intended, I believe, as a part of the president's broadside to attack the legitimacy of the investigations against him. Again, I think they will go nowhere, and decent, reasonable, thoughtful people should look at that and see exactly what it is, which is an attack on someone who is trying to do his job well, and who now, regrettably, is no longer a part of the federal government. And we can chat about those specifics and what the Inspector General has and has not said to this point, and more about some timing issues related to this that I think are very, very troubling, but also go to your question.
Jim, it wasn't so long ago that Trump was tweeting out against his Attorney General, wanting him to use DOJ attorneys to, investigate Andrew McCabe and apparently his involvement in leaking information. Now, McCabe denies any guilt in this matter. McCabe says apparently that the director was aware that he was clarifying information with a journalist over a number of days. My understanding, an Inspector General's report, which we are not yet privy to, sir, apparently says that McCabe should have been fired for these actions. Jim, what can you tell me about Inspector General's office and the mission of such, and what may be contained in this IG report that we've not seen yet?
Absolutely. It's all great questions, and they all go to what we know, what we don't know, and then also some significant issues about the timing, which I'm sure we'll get to. So the Office of Inspector General, Michael Horowitz, the U.S. Department of Justice, is charged with investigating fraud, waste, and abuse, as that's the broad commission of his office. Significantly to this day, and I think this is significant, we do not have the report. We do not have the report of Andrew McCabe's involvement, and all the indications are that this particular component of this is a part of a larger, much larger investigation that Michael Horowitz and the IG's office are doing into the handling of the Hillary Clinton email matter by the FBI. So it's a much larger report. The reason that is significant is that it seems to me, and I think it seems to others, that this particular portion of a report, which is perhaps, maybe we're going to see it tomorrow, maybe we're going to see it next week, maybe we're going to see it a month from now, but pulling out this particular report is done, from my perspective, and I think that of many others, to address the timing of Andrew McCabe's 50th birthday, and related to that, his entitlement to a pension and his appropriate departure. And again, to go to the question about what we do and what we do not know, we know that the Attorney General at about 10 o'clock on Friday night 26 hours before Mr. McCabe would have retired and left his good service from the Department of Justice, that the Attorney General said that McCabe had made unauthorized disclosures to the news media and lacked candor. All right, so that's really all we know officially. I find great interest in the statement that Andrew McCabe himself, obviously with his attorneys, issued shortly after that. He plainly, as you just indicated, denies any sort of lack of candor. He says this. He says the investigation focused on who I talked to, when I talked to them, and so forth. This all had to do with a disclosure of some sensitive information to the media about the Clinton case, and then his talking to the IG about those matters. And so what Andrew McCabe goes on to say is this. I find this very relevant. During those inquiries, I answered questions truthfully and as accurately as I could amidst the chaos that surrounded me. And when I thought my answers were misunderstood, I contacted investigators to correct them. That's very significant. And then at the very last paragraph, I've always prided myself on serving my country with distinction and integrity, and I've always encouraged those around me to do the same. Just ask them. To have my career end this way and to be accused of lacking candor when, at worst, I was distracted in the midst of chaotic events is incredibly disappointing and unfair. Now, why is that significant? Well, again, we don't know exactly what this report is going to say, but there's also this notion that in any investigation, to the extent that you have said something that you find out later is either inaccurate or simply wrong, you can go back and you can say, listen, I was mistaken about this particular aspect. I want to correct this. It sure looks to me an awful lot as if Andrew McCabe attempted to do that. Certainly the statements from his attorney, Michael Bromwich, support that as well. We don't know, and we're going to see the extent to which all of this is true or not true. I am concerned about the extent to which, even if there was a lack of candor, that Andrew McCabe may have attempted to correct those errors and remedy his misstatements before. That's what you want in a responsible FBI agent. That's what you want in a responsible government employee. And that's what we need to take a look at when these reports are ultimately issued. And I think, again, as I say every time that I'm on your show, it's good for the American public and your listeners to take a look at Andrew McCabe's comments today. And it will be very good, regardless of how long it is, for America to read the investigative report, including the panoply of other things the Inspector General looked at when it is issued. And that, of course, goes to what I anticipate being your next question, which is talking about the timing of this, which is very troubling to me and many others.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show on Wisconsin's Resistance Radio Network. Jim Santel, former U.S. attorney from the Eastern District of Wisconsin, joins us on the phone. All right, you laid it up there. I'm going to hit the softball. Jim, tell us about the timing. What is the concern that you have?
Absolutely. So let me go back to Michael Bromwich again, things that may not be in the mainstream media. He is himself a former Inspector General, previously held the Horowitz position, and now he's representing Andrew McCabe. And he, again, notes, as we all do, that this is cleaved, this is pulled out of a larger investigation. And Bromwich says that McCabe was not given an adequate chance to respond to the allegations he faced. Bromwich says that McCabe were given limited access to the IG's report late last month. They saw some report sometime recently and were receiving some exculpatory evidence as recently as 2 days ago. And again, to talk about larger issues, anytime you are going to be making findings, and in my now former capacity and that of many others who continue with the Department of Justice, you always want to get it right. And so any time that someone comes forward and says, listen, I've got more information, Mr. Santel, I've got more information, Mr. Prosecutor, I'd like to present you before you make this decision, before you issue a report, before you go ahead and charge my client with something, whether it is in the criminal arena or as it is here in the arena of the IG and personnel matters, let's entertain those. A good prosecutor, a good public servant always wants to hear the entire story because you don't want to be wrong about something. And so I'm very concerned to the extent that Bromwich is a straight shooter, and I think he is. that there may have been a rush to judgment here. Plainly, we all know what the timing of this was. We talked about already that McCabe's retirement happening 26 hours after the Attorney General announces that he's terminating Mr. McCabe. Why not wait until we see the entire report sometime soon? Perhaps we can place it in context with other things. It certainly is going to be out there. It's not going to change necessarily if, in fact, there is clear proof that Mr. McCabe was not, in fact, straightforward. But the fact that you are doing this, pulling this out, doing it 26 hours before McCabe would otherwise leave the department, not only with his pension, but also at least with his head held high in terms of what he has done for the American people. Why do that? And that's where we get then into the concerns about the timing of this. And the notion both before and afterwards, as you have indicated, that our president asked for his head beforehand and now gleefully indicates horrifically that America should be celebrating this as a great day for America. This is tragic, not only for Andrew McCabe, but for America. This is never a good situation, but why not wait and put the entire report out there for the American public to digest and then determine whether or not in the public arena and the arena of the IG and the folks at the Department of Justice, whether this particular result was right. The rush to judgment is a great concern.
Jim Santel, do you have a few more minutes, sir?
I do, absolutely.
Outstanding. I, like a good prosecutor, hate to ask any question I don't know the answer to. Come back with us. I've got a few more good ones for Jim Santel. He's a former U.S. attorney. We are the Devil's Advocates on Wisconsin's Resistance Radio Network.
Breaking the law, breaking the law. Breaking the law, breaking the law. Breaking the law, breaking the law. Breaking the law, breaking the law.
But there's been no collusion, no obstruction, and virtually everybody agrees to that.
Everybody's innocent in here. Don't you know that?
Do you own a rental property, or would you like to partner with a rental investment team? Call the pros you can trust at CCL Management. Rental expertise second to none, a general contractor on staff to direct repairs and improvements, and real estate brokerage services tailored to the small investor. If you're ready to invest in rental property or just need professionals to manage your real estate portfolio, call us, CCL Management, at 608-833-0009 or visit us on the web at cclmanagement.com.
Hi, I'm Todd Stryker, President and CEO of 5 Nines. Have you got your head in the clouds on how to manage IT for your enterprise? We can make your dreams a reality. With our enterprise cloud technology, consulting, servers, networks, and hosting, we'll manage your IT so you can focus on running your business. Consider 5 Nines your personal enterprise IT solution. Enjoy technology. For more information, visit 5nines.com. That's the number 5, NINES.com.
We are live outside the home of Joe and Rosie Goddard, where a pretty big tickle fight broke out just minutes ago. Sources say their father instigated the laughter. Let's go inside for a comment. Apparently, they have no comment. Dads, let this be a reminder that it only takes a moment to make a moment. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
The Resistance is live 7 days a week here on 1510 AM WRRD, Wisconsin's Resistance Radio. Tune in Saturdays for Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk with Dr. Tim Slecker, 11 a.m. to noon. Then it's the voice of the voiceless, champion of the working class. Earl Ingram's Saturday show is live from 12 to 3 p.m. Then Right Meets Left with the Joel and Joe Costa Show. Republican State Rep Joel Clayfish and Democratic State Rep Joe Costa Zamaripa go toe-to-toe from 3 to 4. Always streaming at newstalk1510am.com, Wisconsin's Resistance Radio.
So, Jesse, why should someone buying a home pay for an agent when they can go online or call the number on a for sale sign?
Great questions. First of all, never call the number on a sign to see a home. That's the seller's agent, and they don't represent your interests. If they show you a home outside of an open house, you forfeit your ability to have someone negotiate in your corner at no cost to you.
Well, with interest rates still at historic lows, how can buyers still get a great deal and protect their rights?
Step 1, find a buyer's agent that you trust. Your agent will best find the home that fits your needs anticipate problems, and negotiate on your behalf from offer through closing day. And most home listing contracts stipulate that the seller's agent pays for the buyer's commission.
Solidarity Realty. They're real, they're solid, they're honest. Whether buying or selling in Madison or Dane County, call Solidarity Realty, 608-284-9311, or find them at solidarityrealty.com.
Only in the forest can you see this. And this. And this. But nothing beats the moment you see that.
Cool!
That's your child's eyes opening up to a world of possibilities.
I didn't know it could do that!
Because one trip to the forest can spark a world of difference.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org. Learn about forests near you and discover cool things to do when you go, like hiking, canoeing, fishing, or camping. Or create your own adventure with family and friends, and you might just see this. Your moment's out there. Find it at discovertheforest.org. That's discovertheforest.org.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
When they go low, we get high. Dom and Krutz are the Devil's Advocates.
And we are back from the 420 break. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show live on Wisconsin's Resistance Radio. James Santel, former United States Attorney, Eastern District of Wisconsin, joins us. Thanks for sticking around, Jim. One last thought for you, sir, in the last 2 minutes that we have here today. This seems to me to be a message. Like, Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes. What do you think this portends for Mr. Mueller? Do you think that Donald Trump is preparing to fire the special prosecutor?
It certainly indicates that that possibility remains very much in the president's mind, which again is horrific and terrible. Again, as we've talked before, we want to make certain that our investigative and prosecutorial offices are free to do their jobs, absent any political intervention. It underscores once again the president's complete lack of understanding about the appropriate relationship between the White House and the Department of Justice, and to the extent that he is emboldened by the fact that Andrew McCabe, this good public servant who may have made some small misstatements, or we don't know yet, and now is deprived of his not only his job but also his pension, and is emboldened by that. That is not a good thing. Eric Holder was in town last week talking about redistricting and talking about democracy. And I met with him both privately, and obviously many others met with him publicly. He talked about just this very issue, the legitimacy of investigations and the reason for them to proceed to their appropriate end, apolitically, absent this kind of intrusive behavior by the president. Eric Holder, a man of great integrity. I have the great pleasure and pride to have worked for him and with him for my term as U.S. Attorney. A tremendous difference from, regrettably, what I see in this administration coming from the White House and coming from the Department of Justice itself.
Jim Santel, former U.S. Attorney, thank you so much. Last quick question, Jim. Mark Polkan offered Andrew McCabe a job. If he accepted, could he earn his pension in 2 days?
I'm not a good personnel person. You need to talk to people in the personnel offices about that.
Jim Santel, thank you so much. We are the Devil's Advocates. We'll be right back.
I can handle things. I'm smart.
We are the People for People Corporation. We are a registered 501c3, totally legit. What do? We take your uncapped, dark money, tax-deductible donations, private or corporate, always anonymous, and we turn it into free speech. Educate Wisconsin through advertising, which may or may not be in coordination with the candidate. Isn't that illegal? It should be, but it's not under Wisconsin law, thanks Governor Scott Walker. Politicians in Wisconsin are beholden to the millionaire and billionaire sugar daddy and sugar mamas that finance their campaigns. Time to make them beholden to we the people for People Corporation. Give your tax-deductible donation to the real patriots, the People for People Corporation, P4PPC.org, P4PPC.org.
Hi, everybody. Did you know that Scott Walker spelled backwards is Wisconsin's Resistance Radio Network? I know, I was amazed too.
Hi, this is Brad Saug, owner of Zero Res Madison Carpet Cleaning. Zero Res is the best new technology in carpet cleaning. We have a patented process using empowered water, a high-tech process in which we force the water to act like soap. It doesn't want to stay in that state. It's jacked up and it's angry and it wants to hit the dirt and then it neutralizes. When we're done, all that's left in your carpet is just light moisture. In the end, you get the cleanest, greenest, healthiest carpet cleaning available. Call us at 848-9000. Zero Res. Spell it backward or forward. It's the right way to clean.
Have a drink at Regano's Roman Coin. This neighborhood corner tavern is as classic as the street it occupies. Family owned and operated since 1966, Regano's Roman Coin is located in a former Pabst Tide House on historic Brady Street, serving an array of craft beers with a focus on Wisconsin breweries. Also, weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, seasonal sporting events, parties hosted for all occasions, and pet friendly. Open 11 a.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday, closed on Monday. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's pet friendly, cash only order and classic corner tavern.
Tweens have mastered the art of tuning out. Jen, there's a spider in the car. We're turning your room into a home gym. See? Nothing. But some messages need to get through. Like making sure they're buckled up the whole ride, every time. Do whatever it takes to make your child listen. Jen, I friended your boyfriend.
Wait, what?
Buckle up, sweetie.
Never give up until they buckle up. Learn more at safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Tune in to The Resistance, Wisconsin's Resistance Radio. Start your weekday off with the Earl Ingram Show from 7 to 9 a.m. Next is the Stephanie Miller Show from 9 to 11. Then from 11 to 2, it's the Tom Hartman Program. At 2 o'clock, it's 414 Wisconsin. Then from 3 to 6, it's the Devil's Advocates. Mandatory listening. Wisconsin's Resistance Radio. For Wisconsin's Resistance Radio Network, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines. Racine County Executive Jonathan Delagrave is warning that a bill the state assembly plans to take up tomorrow could hurt efforts to hire local people to work on projects generated by the Foxconn factory. This Saturday is the March for Our Lives in Washington, D.C. and other cities across the United States. In Milwaukee, the march will start at the county courthouse at 901 North 9th Street at 10 a.m., then proceed to Milwaukee City Hall, where several speakers will address the students, teachers, and supporters. The event is scheduled to last until 3 p.m., and everyone is welcome. And the Bucks are in Cleveland tonight to take on the Cavaliers. Mostly sunny today and then partly cloudy tonight, lows in the mid-20s. Tomorrow, partly sunny, highs in the mid-30s. For Wisconsin's Resistance Radio Network, I'm Stu Daniels.
Visiting is pretty. Visiting is good. Seems that all they ever wanted was a brother.
The big and tall of political talk. Dom and Krutz are the Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. What a tremendous guest. Jim Santel, former U.S. Attorney. I mean, what a tremendous resource he has become for the show. As we left the air, I went over and grabbed him on the phone quickly, and I said, Jim, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I said, when Trump fires Mueller, we'll have you come down to the studio.
It could be next week.
We'll do something of a telethon, maybe a 24-hour show. We'll just stay on the air, and we'll try to deal with the constitutional crisis in real time. And Jim said to me at the end of our conversation, and I think he said it in all sincerity, not like the fake patriotic way that Republicans say it, but he said, God bless America. It was almost more like, God save America from the chaos that Trump is raining down upon it. So thank you, Jim. Got more fine guests, including Margaret Down. She is the county corporate counsel for Milwaukee County. She's going to join us in studio in the happy hour, Dom. But I want to come back to this is a national headline, but it's got a local spin. CambridgeAnalytica. I've done a lot of reading about this group over the course of the weekend. And there is some new news, some breaking news. If you've been at work today, like most of you folks, you may not know the latest But before we jump in, I want to point out, whenever there is new news, be it Russian collusion or anything to do with the national elections, the first thing I'd like to do, Dom, I like to Google.
Go to Raw Story?
Well, I eventually find my way back to Raw Story. It is not the greatest news site, but it is the greatest site about information relevant to the news.
Right.
Well, anyways, I like the Raw Story, but here's the point. What I Google first is whatever the headline is. Let's call it CambridgeAnalytica. And then I Google Scott Walker, governor of the state of Wisconsin. And you'd be surprised, or perhaps not at all surprised to find out, Dom, Scott Walker has many attachments to this Cambridge Analytica story. Now, the market's way off today, and primarily it's the plunging stock value of Facebook, down $42 billion since Friday. Oof. And there are some really bad headlines and worse ones today. But I would point out Rebecca Mercer, Bob Mercer, Robert Mercer. Bob Mercer is the father. Rebecca Mercer, in her early 40s, the daughter. These are powerful Republican backers.
Rich.
Very rich. And Rebecca Mercer is known best for her alliance with Steve Bannon and the funding of Breitbart. But before she was in the Trump camp, Rebecca Mercer was in the Scott Walker camp. And during the recall elections right here in the state of Wisconsin, Rebecca Mercer became the only named donor, $50,000 for some dark money ads that came at the very end of the election process. And there was an outside group.
For the recall.
Dark money outside group. But specifically what they went after was the notion of the recall. It was almost like a social science experiment, because they didn't say support Scott Walker. They didn't say vote against Tom Barrett. What they did is they basically attacked the process of the recall. And they did so with ads. And Rebecca Mercer, CAV, C-A-V, Dom, you've got the article
Coalition for American Values.
And the only named donor, and this article published back in Mother Jones 2012, I believe.
June 5th, 2012.
The only named donor to this dark money group that started spending in the state of Wisconsin right around the recall time is Rebecca Mercer. And she, of course, is the owner of Cambridge Analytica. Now, a couple steps ahead, Dom. Rebecca Mercer went to work for Ted Cruz. And when it was time for the presidential, and I would point out, Cambridge Analytica tied to the Russians all the way back to 2014. They were tied to a Russian oil firm. And they were asked to do some social science experiments for a Russian oil firm, not a direct tie to Putin, but there are ties to Putin between this Russian oil firm. And here's the point. They weren't like looking at gas prices. That's what the whole umbrella cover was. But apparently what they were doing research for a Russian oil firm was on the political reactions of people on things like Facebook. And this was going on way back in 2014. And Mercer and her group went on to become first Ted Cruz's social medium, their gurus, their social science people. And Ted Cruz, I would point out, right here in the great state of Wisconsin, had perhaps his finest day as a candidate.
They
right?
loved him here, the Republicans did. They loved some Ted Cruz.
Now, I always gave undue credit, perhaps, to right-wing talk radio, because they all said,
Vote
never
for
Trump.
Cruz, right.
Never Trump. Once Scott Walker folded like a cheap suit, then it was Ted Cruz who ultimately won the primary here. And I thought, well, it's just ISN, it's just TMJ. They're just telling their righties who to vote for.
Which they did.
But there's a lot of social science stuff that was going on behalf of the Ted Cruz campaign. And eventually Ted Cruz, he faltered, Dom. And the Cruz campaign, and even Rebecca Mercer at that time, you know who they were envious of? Scott Walker's campaign. He had 160 paid staffers at that time.
$90,000 a week.
When Cambridge Analytica came on to work for the Trump campaign, He had 30 staffers. And the people that went to work for the Cambridge Analytica, they were the digital guys from the Scott Walker presidential campaign. And there's an article, I don't know if I have it here readily, Dom, way back when they were first hired, talking about Cambridge Analytica. Here it is. A lot of people are saying Trump's new data team is shady. Now, this article, published back during the election time frame, right, Don?
August 15th of 2016.
Now, I would point out, I don't just make up randomly that these people came from the Scott Walker organization. It's right here in the article, Dom. Looking for it. Didn't have this one readily at hand. A lot of chop off on this article, man.
Some don't print out as well as others.
So here's the point. It was effectively the people that ran Scott Walker's digital operation that went on to work for Bob Mercer and Rebecca Mercer over at Cambridge Analytica. Now we got a news story from The Guardian. The Guardian has been the breaking source. I mean, there's a lot of news stories coming out about Cambridge Analytica, but this is the most recent headline and perhaps the most titillating headline, Dom. Cambridge Analytica boasts of dirty tricks to swing elections. This one published about 2 hours ago. Emma Graham Harrison at The Guardian. The company at the center of the Facebook data breach boasted of using honey traps, fake news campaigns, and operations with ex-spies to swing election campaigns around the world, a new investigation reveals. Executives from Cambridge Analytica spoke to undercover reporters from Channel 4 News, now that is in Britain, about the dark arts used by the company to help clients, which included entrapping rival candidates in the fake bribery stings and hiring prostitutes to seduce them.
How very...
No, that sounds a lot like the tactics of Kushner's old man, right?
Yeah.
In one exchange, the company chief executive, Alexander Nix, is recorded telling reporters, "It sounds a dreadful thing to say, but these are things that don't necessarily need to be true as long as they are believed." The Channel 4 News investigation, broadcast on Monday, comes 2 days after The Observer reported Cambridge Analytica had unauthorized access to tens of millions of Facebook profiles in one of the social media company's biggest data breaches. The company and Nix are under pressure from politicians in the U.S. and the U.K. to explain how it handled the data and what role the information played in its campaigns, if any. Cambridge Analytica has sold itself as the ultimate high-tech consultant, winning votes by using data to pinpoint target groups and design messages that will appeal powerfully to their interest, although it denies using Facebook information in its work. But the undercover investigation by Channel 4 News in association with The Observer, executives claim to offer a much darker range of services, Dominic.
In a series of meetings with a reporter posing as the representative of a wealthy Sri Lankan family seeking political influence, Cambridge Analytica executives initially denied the company was in the business of using entrapment techniques. But Nix later detailed the dirty tricks the company would be prepared to pull behind the scenes to help its clients. When the reporter asked if Cambridge Analytica could offer investigations into the damaging secrets of rivals, Nix said it worked with former spies from Britain and Israel to look for political dirt. He also volunteered that his team were ready to go further than an investigation. "Oh, we do a lot more than that," he said over dinner at an exclusive hotel in London. "Deep digging is interesting, but equally effective can be just to go and speak to the incumbent and to offer them a deal that's too good to be true and make sure that that's video recorded. These sorts of tactics are very effective, instantly having video evidence of corruption." Nix suggested one possible scenario in which the managing director of Cambridge Analytica's political division, Mark Turnbull, would pose as a wealthy developer looking to exchange campaign finance for land. "I'm a master of disguise," Turnbull said. Another option Nix suggested would be to create a sex scandal. Send some girls around to the candidate's house. We have lots of history of things. He told the reporter, we could bring some Ukrainians in on holiday with us. You know what I'm saying. He said these,
I do.
These were hypothetical scenarios, but suggested his ideas were based on precedent. Please don't pay too much attention to what I'm saying because I'm just giving you examples of what can be done, what has been done. Any work may have stayed out of the spotlight, partly because Cambridge Analytica works hard to cover its traces of its operations, Nick said, using a shifting network of names and front groups. We're used to operating through different vehicles in the shadows, and I look forward to building a very long-term and secretive relationship with you, Nix told the source in a first phone call.
Dom, I wanted to quote my source. Wired.com, a lot of people are saying Trump's new data team is shady. Here's the relevant quote. The campaign sees other advantages, lessons learned from the models Cambridge Analytica built for Ben Carson, and Ted Cruz that could help Trump. And Cambridge has bolstered its ranks of digital operatives, drawing from Governor Scott Walker's campaign in particular. Still, the Trump aides say the data gleaned from Cambridge is just one cog in a very large engine, fueled by information from the Republican National Committee and other vendors. Where do you think the Republican National Committee got that information on the state of Wisconsin that was later used perhaps to influence the outcome? Donald Trump by 22,000 votes. So I would say look at Scott Walker's digital operation. More Devil's Advocates will be back. More Cambridge Analytica. This is a breaking story that involves our own governor.
Russia, if you're listening, my good friend, Governor Scott Walker, there has never been so many lies, so much deception. There has never been anything like it.
I'm Andy Buck, and I'm proud to be union.
Tell me about the underground economy.
Well, the underground economy is essentially workers being exploited, and they're being exploited all over the state. They're working for no benefits, no retirement, and if you don't join your brothers and sisters, you don't respect your craft.
Andy, why should I hire union?
Crudy, you should hire union because you want the job done right the first time. We represent the highest skilled, safety-trained workers in the industries that we represent. Glazers, painters, and drywall finishers. Join us. Painters and Allied Trades, District Council 7.
Music is a bridge between the material and the spiritual. My name is Harvey Lauer, and I'm 82. As a blind person, you have to be aware that nobody can tell you what you can or can't do. You really have to try things. My folks got me a little radio in 1940, and that was the best Christmas present I ever got. When I was 11 years old is when I started to play music, play the piano, and then the accordion, and then the cello. My wife, who was also blind, was a good cook. When she died, that's when I started Meals on Wheels. America, let's do lunch.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
Everybody buckle up. Mom. Buckle up.
Let's go.
Buckle up.
Can we go to the store? Mom,
buckle
can we get
up.
some ice cream?
Everybody, buckle up.
A lot goes on in the car, but you're in control. So only move when you hear the click that says they're buckled in. Never give up until they buckle up. Learn more at safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Crudy. I'm here with Bill Carroll, president of Teamsters Local 344. Bill, why are you union? Teamster strong.
Well, Crudy, our strength comes from our membership. The Teamsters are North America's strongest labor union with 1.4 million members.
Bill, what does the Teamsters do for the next generation?
The same thing that the Teamsters have done for the last 100 years, assisting groups of workers in negotiating improvements in their wages, hours, and working conditions.
Where do people go if they want to know more about the Teamsters, more about joining the union?
There's 3 easy options. They can call Local 344 at 414-258-4545. They can contact us through our website. That's local344.org. Local, the number is 344.org, or they can contact us through the Local 344 Facebook page.
Be union strong. Join Teamsters 344. Be like Rudy. Be like News Talk 1510 AM. Stand with the unions. Join the Teamsters. Local 344.org.
Open road, here comes the Heffley family.
You've packed the smartphones, headphones, tablets, water snacks, cooler, sunscreen, bikes, skateboards, games, videos, sunglasses.
There's no room for people in here.
Just don't wimp out on the most important thing.
Deep fried butter on a
stick. No, seatbelts. Whether it's a long haul or short trip,
It's a win-win situation.
never give up until they buckle up. Visit safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup for more information. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
The Devil's Advocates.
We've got U.S. Senator Ron Johnson, our friend, live via phone. Ron, in all seriousness, if this was Barack Obama, you'd be screaming, "Stormy, stormy, stormy," from the rooftops.
You're too young to understand this excuse. This would be the Sergeant Schultz answer. I know nothing.
But as the chair of the HISCAC, sir, Homeland Security Governmental Affairs Committee, you
right
could
now,
get to the bottom of this, could you not, Ron?
I see nothing. I know nothing.
Making radio great again.
Informer, you know, say that I'm a stormy, I go blam.
I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for those meddling Devil's Advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show live on Wisconsin's Resistance Radio Network. We stream live on YouTube and Facebook, on Twitter at Devil Radio, and on the phones, toll free, 844-967-2789.
Dominic, we're talking about CambridgeAnalytica. That is an outfit that apparently stole lots and lots of data from Facebook. And of course, it involves Rebecca Mercer, who was a donor, not directly to Scott Walker, but did sort of a social science experiment here in the state of Wisconsin while Scott Walker was in the midst of the recall. Not for Scott Walker, not against Tom Barrett, but against the recall. And they were still gathering information at that time, Dom. They were still working on their social science aspects. And ultimately, after Ted Cruz, failed because CambridgeAnalytica was on behalf of Ted Cruz in the presidential campaign. And Ted Cruz did win the state of Wisconsin after Scott Walker dropped out. But their digital team actually stole some fine staffers from Scott Walker, including whom, Dom?
Before we get to that, Crudy, real quick, this group that was involved in the recall, this Coalition for American Values. Now, you mentioned that there was a $50,000 donation given November
by Rebecca Mercer, November of 2011.
Correct.
The only named donor to that outfit. And CAV, ironically, CambridgeAnalytica, CA, I wonder if there's any relevance there.
But that same organization, that Mercer-backed organization, did a media buy here in Wisconsin as well. In the state's 7 media markets, an estimated cost of nearly $300,000.
Well, some of that money was Koch brothers money, no doubt. Scott Walker was the chosen candidate of the Koch brothers, and Rebecca Mercer and CambridgeAnalytica initially went with Ted Cruz. He, of course, won Wisconsin but failed in Indiana. We were down there. You put the kiss of death on Ted Cruz, Dom. And America thanks you for doing so.
I had to wash my hands after
Who is
that.
this guy? You found him on LinkedIn. He was one of the digital guys for the Scott Walker campaign. He's now, head of products at CambridgeAnalytica? What was his role?
We'll go through his history here a little bit. Matt Oskowski from the LinkedIn profile. He was a chief digital strategist for Friends of Scott Walker, July of 2013 to June of 2015.
So from after the recall until 2015.
June of 2015. Then in July
he worked for the Friends of Scott Walker. That is the gubernatorial side of the Scott Walker campaigning entities that are.
And then in July, the very next month, he took a new job as the chief digital officer with Scott Walker for America. And that lasted for 4 months.
Well, technically 71 days, Dom. It was a short run for Gubernator Walker.
And here's where it gets where we talked about Cambridge. In November of 2015, after leaving Scott Walker's presidential campaign.
In October of 2015.
The month before, he became the head of product for CambridgeAnalytica.
You mean the very same CambridgeAnalytica, Dom, that's all over the front page of The Guardian today, reportedly because the boss tells undercover reporters how honey trap spies and fake news can be used to help clients?
Well, I mean, he was there for a year and 10 months, went on to become the co-founder of Human Behavior and then now co-founder of Campaign Box.
Well, Campaign Box, he created with another former Scott Walker digital staffer. They're offering a very similar product, which basically is social science. You know, Facebook knows all about you. You click who you like. And, you know, once upon a time...
And what you like and what you share.
Well, sponsors would be very interested, but Bannon and CambridgeAnalytica think that not only do they know what you're thinking, but they can influence what it is you're thinking. They did so with stolen Facebook information, perhaps as many as 50 million consumers. And I would point out, where was this most effective? Because according to the fine reporting of the Washington Post, Dom, they didn't have enough time to do the full rollout, all the social science stuff for Donald Trump. But I'm going to read from Cambridge's Nix, same guy that's quoted in the clandestine video of Channel 4, is saying, what, they hired hookers. 2 days before the election, Cambridge's Nix said in an interview that his firm wasn't able to leverage its psychographics on Trump's behalf. Here is Nix talking to TechCrunch. We just didn't have the time to roll out that survey. We had to build all the IT, all the infrastructure. There was nothing. There were 30 people on his campaign, 30. Even Scott Walker had 160. It's probably why he went bust. And he was the first to crash out. So I've said to others of your journalist colleagues, clearly there's a psychographic data that's baked into legacy models that we built before because we're not reinventing the wheel. So where do you think they got the prior version of the wheel, the data? Let me read on from the Washington Post. We've been using models that are based on models that are based on models, and we've been building these models for nearly 4 years. Let's not forget, first started in Wisconsin in 2012, and all of those models had psychographics in them. But did we go out and roll out a long-form quantitative psychographic survey specifically for Trump supporters? No, we just didn't have time. We just couldn't do that. So they only did it for a small number of states, Dom, including Wisconsin. Wonder where they got the data from. Could it have been from Scott Walker's former data team? I don't know. We are the devil's advocate. Scott Walker ended that campaign in lots of debt. Wonder where he sold the information to, probably including your email that I shared with them.
Damn it, Rudy.
Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates right here on Wisconsin's only Resistance Radio Network.
The next time, we're going to win the old-fashioned way.
Having a great time.
Have you outgrown your house? Are you sick of apartment living? Not ready to buy but know you need to move? Hi folks, this is Tom Hartman for CCL Management in Middleton. You should consider moving up to one of the finer rental homes CCL Management represents. Unique houses and condos, always clean, most are pet friendly. Visit cclmanagement.com today to find your new home. CCL Management, Dane County's premier leasing and property management company.
Call CCL Management at 833-0009. That's 833-0009 or visit cclmanagement.com today.
So, Jesse, why should someone buying a home pay for an agent when they can go online or call the number on a for sale sign?
Great questions. First of all, never call the number on a sign to see a home. That's the seller's agent, and they don't represent your interests. If they show you a home outside of an open house, you forfeit your ability to have someone negotiate in your corner at no cost to you.
Well, with interest rates still at historic lows, how can buyers still get a great deal and protect their rights?
Step 1, find a buyer's agent that you trust. Your agent will best find the home that fits your needs, anticipate problems, and negotiate on your behalf from offer through closing day. And most home listing contracts stipulate that the seller's agent pays for the buyer's commission.
Solidarity Realty. They're real, they're solid, they're honest. Whether buying or selling in Madison or Dane County, call Solidarity Realty, 608-284-9311, or find them at solidarityrealty.com.
Please tune in Saturday, March 24th from noon to 3 p.m. when Earl Ingram anchors special coverage of the 10th Annual Wisconsin Grassroots Festival from Mazomanie, People Organizing for Solutions. Speakers include Lisa Graves, John Nichols, Matt Rothschild, Congressman Mark Pocan, and Senator Tammy Baldwin. Tune in right here on Wisconsin's Resistance Radio Network, Saturday, March 24th, noon to 3.
You are listening to 1510 AM WRRD Waukesha, Milwaukee, and 1580 AM WTTN Columbus, Wisconsin's Resistance Radio Network.
Serial bomber, the Russia probe. I'm Ann Cates. A manhunt is underway in Austin, Texas for a serial bomber following a fourth explosion that left 2 injured. Austin Police Chief Brian Manley.
We were not willing to classify this as terrorism, as hate, because we just don't know enough. And what we have seen now is a significant change from what appeared to be 3 very targeted attacks to what was last night an attack that would have hit a random victim that happened to walk by.
The White House says President Trump is not thinking about firing special counsel Robert Mueller as the Russia probe widens. Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen says GOP lawmakers should team up with Democrats and approve a measure to protect Mueller.
I think Republican leader McConnell now needs to step up and work with us to have a vote on that legislation. If Republicans agree that that would be unacceptable, they should join us in passing that bill in the United States Senate.
The Washington Post is reporting that President Trump's attorneys have given Mueller written descriptions of key moments under investigation in hopes of limiting the scope of any interview. President Trump has launched a war on the opioid crisis in the U.S.
There are proposals to expand treatment, anti-overdose drug access, and prevention programs. But President Trump in New Hampshire saying it's time to stop being nice.
And that toughness includes the death penalty.
The American Civil Liberties Union, in a statement, points to Supreme Court rulings that prohibit death sentences for non-homicide crimes and calls the proposal unconstitutional and absurd. There are some circumstances where drug traffickers involved in deadly events can be sentenced to death in federal court. However, the president backed off of what he told a Pittsburgh rally over a week ago, that dealers should be subject to the ultimate penalty as well. Bob Costantini, Washington.
On Wall Street, the Dow fell 336 points, the S&P 500 down 39, the Nasdaq off 138. I'm Ann Cates.
Excuse me, I know you have a 9 o'clock, so I'll keep this short. I'm the business suit in the back of your closet. You wore me nearly every day before your office went, quote, casual. I used to be the CEO of your closet. Now I'm just that one intern no one ever talks to. I always thought you'd circle back with me, get granular, keep me in the pipeline. But nada, nothing. Don't you remember the McKittrick presentation? You spilled coffee on me and I still looked amazing during the breakout talkback Q&A. So, I think it's time for me to move on. I've got a great resume and I absolutely crush it in interviews, okay? Let's make this a clean break. Shift the paradigm. The only thing I ask is that you think outside the box here and do this. Take me to Goodwill, where I can really make a difference.
Your donations to Goodwill create new jobs, training programs, and education assistance for people in your community. To find your nearest donation center, go to goodwill.org. Donate stuff, create jobs. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
7 Web Now 1.
College basketball Sweet 16 is set after a wild weekend of March Madness.
Villanova and Kansas are the only 1 seeds left after Florida State stunned Xavier last night and Virginia's shocking loss Friday night. Just a pair of 2nd seeds survived, Duke and Purdue, after defending champion North Carolina was knocked out by Texas A&M, and Nevada's 22-point comeback over Cincinnati. The rest of the 16, West Virginia, Michigan, Texas Tech, Gonzaga, Kentucky, Clemson, Kansas State, Loyola Chicago, and Syracuse. The 11-seeded Orangemen, the last team selected to the tournament, still alive after topping Michigan State yesterday. Sweet 16 action is Thursday and Friday night. I'm Joe Ramsey.
With 3 billion people flying the friendly skies each year, just how germy are airplanes? According to an Emory University study, passengers within 2 seats of someone with a respiratory illness have an 80% or greater chance of getting sick than travelers sitting farther away. I'm Ann Cates.
Whoa. The moment my son saw a redwood tree.
It's huge!
Is the moment I knew that for him,
You can't even see the top of that thing.
even the sky has no limit.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org. Learn about forests near you and discover cool things to do when you go. Your moment is out there. Find it at discovertheforest.org.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Hey everybody, I'm Daryl Ingram of News Talk 1510 WRRD, Wisconsin's Resistance Radio, and I am the Director of Advertising and Marketing. The pride of our independent stands runs deep in all that we do here at the station. The thing that I know for sure is that you can count on the quality and independent production of client advertising, mirroring the quality and independence of our fine programming here at News Talk 1510. To learn more, contact me at 414-335-0851 or via email at daryl@newstalk1510am.
For Wisconsin's Resistance Radio Network, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines. Leaders from both parties, including Senator Tammy Baldwin, Governor Walker, and former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder, are now calling for a response from the federal government after it was reported last week that Russian Twitter trolls posted racially divisive tweets during the Sherman Park unrest in the summer of 2016 and posted tweets that supported the Trump campaign in Wisconsin during the presidential election. And Racine County Executive Jonathan Delagrave is warning that a bill the state assembly plans to take up tomorrow could hurt efforts to hire local people to work on projects generated by the Foxconn factory. Mostly sunny today and then partly cloudy tonight, lows in the mid-20s. Tomorrow, partly sunny, highs in the mid-30s. For Wisconsin's Resistance Radio Network, I'm Stu Daniels.
The following program is a presentation of DC Communications, LLC. Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dom, we're sliding into the 5 o'clock happy hour, turning our attention back here to the great state of Wisconsin. Some breaking news out of the state. State Senator Terry Moulton retiring. That's one less Republican to contend with. One more unencumbered seat, if you will, Dom.
Spending more time with the family, perhaps.
Senate 23rd, apparently going back to the tackle box business. Senate 23rd, that's the Chippewa Falls area. That went heavily for Moulton. I believe he got like 61% of the vote in his most recent election 4 years ago.
Well, why would you walk away, on top?
Dominic, maybe he's reading the tea leaves. I'd also point out Governor Scott Walker, a few interesting connections. Paul Singer, his big donor during the recall. Mm-hmm. And let's not forget, Paul Singer did a Scott Walker presidential fundraiser. And Scott Walker, of course, was the darling of the Christian conservatives. And just a little digression here. Let's not forget, Scott Walker kissed off $250 million in casino money to win the influence of 400 Christian conservatives.
That casino money would have been used to help fund the Milwaukee Bucks arena.
Because he was afraid of offending Christian conservatives
in Iowa.
Instead, they voted for Donald Trump and made the 4-time casino bankrupter president of the United States. I mean, I just point out, Scott Walker was earmarked to be the Manchurian candidate, and he just wasn't dynamic enough. Fusion GPS, that was his guy, Paul Singer.
And
Scott Walker, Funder, were the ones that created the Russian dossier on Donald Trump.
They started the dossier on Trump, and then once Trump won, they turned and found another backer.
Hillary Clinton's campaign, the DNC, above and beyond that. The Russian NRA.
The what?
Pictures of the Russian NRA, the right to bear arms, BEAR arms. They were at Scott Walker's presidential campaign launch. I'm talking about Torsion and Butina, right?
Yes. They were there.
They were there when
yeah.
Scott Walker
announced.
launched in Waukesha, Wisconsin.
What were the Russians doing in Waukesha?
I don't know. Perhaps the Russians are welcomed by the Republicans in Waukesha County.
You know, according to the reports, the governor, when he greeted Butina, he greeted her in Russian. Did you know Scott Walker could speak Russian?
I didn't even know Scott Walker could adequately speak English, but apparently went out of his way to do what? A gesture towards the Russian NRA that were at his presidential campaign launch. And up until that point, he had been supported by Paul Singer, the guy who paid for the Russian dossier on Donald Trump, Fusion GPS, that also Scott Walker campaigned owner. And let's not forget at least a campaign benefactor, the anti-recall, Rebecca Mercer, $50,000.
And a $300,000 buy.
Is also the one that owns CambridgeAnalytica, the one that hired away two of Scott Walker's digital operators. Hell, they head up the team. They were the heart of the operation. And right here in the state of Wisconsin, it was just last week that we found out Russian troll farms were stirring racial animus around Sherman Park. Now, they might have been looking for other circumstances to do that, but it is not conspicuous at all that the data team, the models built on models as described by Nix over at CambridgeAnalytica, whose models do you think they're building on? Be it for Cruz to win the state of Wisconsin primary, or be it for Scott Walker or Donald Trump. It's all the same data.
Models on models,
it's the same data operatives. And these are the people that Scott Walker associates with. The Russian NRA, the Fusion GPS funder, and CambridgeAnalytica.
The Mercers.
And people wonder why I bash the man.
Well, let's continue.
He would be more, if he was only a better politician, he would be the corrupted president draining the swamp in D.C., Dom. He would gladly sell his soul to the Russians.
To be president? Yeah, you see how excited he was when he sat in that chair with Trump over his shoulder and their blue ties.
He looked almost as excited in the photo I've seen from his campaign launch when he's with the Russian operatives, Butina and Torshin. The one he's greeted in Russian, as is the governor's custom, Dom. He greets all Russian operatives in Russian.
Molotov.
At his presidential campaign launch.
Having a great time.
Freedom.
Back to the Washington Post. This story about CambridgeAnalytica. A lot of details to try and keep straight in my mind. Sorry if I've confused a few points, but Scott Walker, probably guilty as sin, I assert. Point number 7. Is Special Counsel Robert S. Mueller III tracking this whole thing? Talking about the CambridgeAnalytica. Apparently, given that the Trump campaign and Cambridge invested so much in targeting people online, and given that we know Russian actors tried to leverage Facebook ads and social media to influence voters, there's a natural question as to whether the two efforts had any coordination. Campaign coordination, that always happens here in Wisconsin, right, Dom?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I can't read the one word.
In July.
Oh, thank you. McClatchy reported Mueller's team was looking specifically at that. Here's a quote. Congressional and Justice Department investigators are focusing on whether Trump's campaign pointed Russian cyber operatives to certain voting jurisdictions in key states. Let's think Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Sherman Park.
Yeah, that could be
3
a key
months
state.
before the election. I read on. Peter Stone and Greg Gordon wrote, they quoted a former Pentagon staffer named Mike Carpenter. Here's a quote. There appears to have been significant cooperation between Russia's online propaganda machine and individuals in the United States who were knowledgeable about where to target the disinformation. Where would they get the disinformation targeting from, if not from Scott Walker's former digital operatives?
And finally, number 8, Crudy. So are there links to Russia? The Washington Post inquires.
Scott Walker? Yes, through the NRA, if nothing else.
Well, it depends on what you mean by links. We are in this weird moment where any even tangible link to Russia or Russian persons is heralded as a sign of questionable collusion. So here is what we know now. The Times reported that SCL Group, now SCL Group was a precursor with Mercer and Nix prior to Cambridge Analytica, that SCL Group had spoken with the Russian oil giant Lukoil in 2014 and 2015, and that the company was interested in how data was used to target American voters, according to two former company insiders who said they were at least 3 meetings with Lukoil executives in London and in Turkey. In an interview with the Today Show on Monday, Wiley reiterated this claim. Wiley is the guy, whistleblower,
who built
from
the
Cambridge.
mind-effing machine for Bannon. He's the guy that built the app, if you will.
The paper also notes that Cambridge included questions about Russian President Vladimir Putin in its 2014 focus groups, though we will note this was also a time period in which Russia seizing Crimea became central to American foreign policy conversations. Now, this is what, 2014?
Is that not related? The fact that they would usurp Crimea's government and then they would ask questions through Cambridge Analytica in the United States to get voter attitudes?
Now, let's remember, Paul Manafort, Donald Trump's former campaign manager, was cashing checks from the Ukraine as late as 2014.
Yeah, but Manafort did not want Cambridge Analytica. Cambridge Analytica came along with Steve Bannon because, of course, the Mercers are also invested in Breitbart, and with the condonement of Kellyanne Conway, crazy Kellyanne.
And late last year, the Post reports, the Daily Beast reported that Nix had contacted WikiLeaks' Julian Assange before the election, offering to host emails stolen from Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman to create a searchable database. Assange declined the offer. Those emails are believed to have been stolen by Russian hackers linked to the country's intelligence agencies. One other link is worth mentioning. Kogan, the Cambridge researcher who developed the tool that led to the Facebook suspension, had reportedly also received a grant from the Russian government to research social media. Nothing I did on the Russia project was at all related to Cambridge Analytica in any way, Kogan told The Guardian.
Does anyone ever readily admit guilt to reporters other than perhaps Donald Trump in regards to firing James Comey, to NBC News' Lester Holt? I mean, that is literally the only example I can ever think of.
The most honest you've ever seen Donald Trump ever behave. Yeah, I fired the Russia thing.
Well, they told the Sergis in the Oval Office the same thing, right? Yeah. And the Mossad was mad as hell. Israeli intelligence still does not trust us. So just to recap, Scott Walker linked to the Russian NRA. Scott Walker linked to the funder of the Fusion GPS, the Trump-Russian dossier.
Yes.
The PP tape.
Yes.
Christopher Steele, eventually, Hillary Clinton's campaign team picked up the tab. And Scott Walker up to his eyeballs, both in perhaps the data collection and the data that was used to target voters in the state of Wisconsin, one of the 3 Midwestern states that helped Donald Trump win the presidency. First, Ted Cruz won the state with the assistance of Cambridge Analytica. Then they hired away 2 of Scott Walker's digital guys, one of whom became head of products for Cambridge Analytica. And then Donald Trump won the state of Wisconsin after we just found out last week Russian troll farms were targeting Wisconsin, Milwaukee voters specifically. And one must question where they got that bright idea from.
Why would they do such a thing?
Folks, we are the devil's advocates. I mean, it's hard to keep all the corruption straight, all the connections to Scott Walker. My assertion, the Russians would have gladly made him the Manchurian candidate. He was malleable. He's a willing rube. He just wasn't dynamic enough to win the primaries.
He is not a dynamic man, that's for sure. But he'd be willing to cash the checks, that we know.
Folks, we are the devil's advocates. We'd cash a few more checks if they were written our way. Hell, the Russians could drive up with a truck full of rubles right after they get done dropping off at the governor's mansion here in the state of Wisconsin. Let's not forget, Scott Walker ran that elective campaign, that presidential campaign, out of the people's house. He ran it out of the governor's mansion in Madison. And of course, the Russians, well, they came to his campaign launch in Waukesha. What a fine leader we have. I wonder how the Russians would say Scotty Wanker. Come back with us. We got guests. Maggie Talon, she is the corporate counsel for Milwaukee County. We are the Devil's Advocates, going to talk more about the lawsuit against the pharmaceutical company's opioid epidemic. It's striking right here in Wisconsin as well. More of us, Wisconsin's Resistance Radio Network, 1510 a.m., 1580 a.m. Thanks for listening. Stick around, more Big Show.
They'd like to take me out for a lot of reasons far bigger than just this election.
Скотт Уокер не знает этого, но он российский агент.
And they literally and figuratively get hooked, and once they get hooked, there's no going back.
Having a great time.
Well, Jason, I've got to tell you, you're pretty much everything this company is looking for in an entry-level candidate.
Great.
Your resume isn't quite what we're used to, but you've got a fantastic work ethic.
Thank you.
And I'm impressed by how you carry yourself.
So, should we talk about the job?
What, the job? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I have no way of recruiting or even meeting you. This interview didn't happen.
It may sound ridiculous, and that's because it kind of is. There's a huge pool of talent your company is missing out on. Meet the grads of life. Who are they? Talent worth knowing about. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
Man, we really could have used him.
Don't miss out on a resource many innovative companies have already discovered. Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Is my kid in the right car seat? I guess she is.
There are probably rules on when to move up to a booster seat, aren't there?
Rear-facing, forward-facing. I think I have it right.
Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Are your children in the right car seat for their age and size? Don't think you know you know. Go to safercar.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Whoa. The moment my son saw a redwood tree.
It's huge!
Is the moment I knew that for him,
You can't even see the top of that thing.
even the sky has no limit.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org. Learn about forests near you and discover cool things to do when you go. Your moment is out there. Find it at discovertheforest.org.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
I'm afraid right now for the future of my children's generation and those to come.
In this age of mass school shootings, Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker offers the same bold agenda of the National Rifle Association.
Make sure you remember in your thoughts and more importantly in your prayers.
While Walker offers platitudes, he blocks meaningful gun safety legislation.
It's really an honor to work with the NRA not only in my state but across the country. And I'm proud of my A+ ranking as a governor.
Walker weakened the gun laws in Wisconsin, and then he got $3.5 million worth of NRA support.
There have been men and women of courage who've been willing to stand up and think more about the future of their children and their grandchildren than they thought about their own futures.
Scott Walker, you are not one of them. This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org, p4ppc.org.
Hi, I'm Anton Capella. As Chief Technology Officer at Five Nines, I work hard to be a leader in my industry, and I know the challenges posed by changing technology. It's my priority to make sure your network is up over 99% of the time. There's no question, trying to manage your own business IT is risky, costly, and time-consuming. Don't let IT overwhelm you. Learn more about Five Nines at fivenines.com. That's the number 5, NINES.com.
I gotta tell you, so when I first moved to Green Bay to play football in '92, I had never been to Wisconsin. But the funniest thing I thought, you could not buy hamburger patties without a dollop of butter on them.
Folks, just so you know, if you take a little bit of herb butter and put it in the middle of a patty and just kind of mold it around there, you get magic.
I have one of my arteries right now.
How much did you say you weighed?
I'm gaining weight with my thoughts right now.
You're $3 and some change already, brother.
Guns, butter, economics.
414 Wisconsin, weekdays 2 to 3 p.m. on Wisconsin's Resistance Radio.
The Devil's Advocates, where there's always time for Scott Walker bashing. Hashtag Walker bashing.
And We are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show live on Wisconsin's Resistance Radio Network. We also stream this product live on the YouTube page, on the Facebook page. We're on Twitter at Devil Radio and on phones 844-967-2789.
Dominic, the recently fired Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe already has a job offer from our buddy Mark Pocan. Mark's going to join us on the show tomorrow, 3:30 Central Time. Tell us all about the job offer he extended to McCabe so McCabe can get his proper retirement, his pension, Dom. And one last thought, just to put a bow on it. Anytime you hear the words Fusion GPS, think Scott Walker. Anytime you hear the words Russian NRA, think Scott Walker. And anytime you hear the words Cambridge Analytica, think Scott Walker. And one last one. Anytime you think of the words Manchurian Candidate, just not dynamic enough, think Scott Walker.
Now, Crudy, you mentioned Pocan coming on tomorrow. You offered a job to McCabe. McCabe was fired for what? For not being forthcoming enough on his testimony?
Dominic, it was either a message or it was just pure vindictiveness or perhaps a combination of trying to undermine the credibility of the witness to Comey. Because when Comey left the president's office, he spoke with Andrew McCabe. Andrew McCabe has drafted his own memos. You know, Trump's calling them hashtag fake memos. But anyways,
what about the guy that fired McCabe?
You mean the Attorney General, Jeffrey Beauregard Sessions III? Well, Dom, according to The Guardian, a key question might be whether Sessions likes to perjure himself much.
From The Guardian, Crudy said, Reuters in Washington, Sessions' testimony that he opposed a proposal for Donald Trump's 2016 campaign to meet with Russians has been contradicted by three people who said they had spoken about the matter to investigators with special counsel Robert Mueller or congressional committees. The Attorney General testified before Congress in November of 2017 that he pushed back against the proposal made by the former campaign advisor George Papadopoulos at a March 31st, 2016 campaign meeting. Then a senator from Alabama, Sessions, chaired the meeting as head of Trump's campaign foreign policy team. Yes, I pushed back, Sessions told the House Judiciary Committee when asked if he shut down Papadopoulos' proposal. Sessions has since been interviewed by Mueller. Three people who attended the March meeting said they gave their versions of events to FBI agents or congressional investigators working on Russian interference in the 2016 election. Although the accounts they provided differed in certain aspects, all three, who declined to be identified, said Sessions expressed no objections to Papadopoulos' idea. Another meeting attendee, J.D. Gordon, who was the Trump's campaign's director of national security, told media outlets in November that Sessions strongly opposed Papadopoulos' proposal and said no one should speak of it again. In response to a request for comment, Gordon said on Saturday he stood by his statement.
Perjure yourself much? Jonathan Turley, known well back to his opposition to the Iraq War, a George Washington University professor said, if you're talking about false statements, prosecutors look for something that is concrete and clear. Proving there was intent to lie is a heavy burden for the prosecution, said Bennett Gershom, another Pace University law professor. But now you have multiple places where Sessions has arguably made false statements. That's called perjury.
I don't recall. I've been called a surrogate a time or two.
Perhaps he wants to amend his testimony. Come right back. Margaret Dunn. She is the corporate counsel of Milwaukee County. We are the Devil's Advocates on Wisconsin's only Resistance Radio Network.
The intelligence community, that's of the United States of America.
They are a breath of fresh air.
I was on Zero Res Madison's Facebook page the other day, and they have almost 2,000 testimonials from local customers. Apparently, I am not the only one stoked on how cool this company is. A green technology that actually works better and doesn't cost more, it's a no-brainer, I'm in. We are starting our own Devil's Advocates revolution to free your carpets from harsh chemicals and soaps. Call Zero Res today and ask for the Dom and Crute special 608-848-9000 or schedule online at ZeroResMadison.com. Zero Res, spell it forward or backward, it's the right way to clean.
The Devil's Advocates.
U.S. Senator Ron Johnson, our friend, live via phone. What about simply raising the age of weapons purchases to 21 years of age?
We're sending 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds over to Afghanistan, and they're dying. They ought to be able to vote. They ought to be able to have a beer, and they ought to be able to buy a gun to hunt with as well.
Are you suggesting we lower the drinking age?
No. Can't they do that now? What is the age nowadays?
It's 21, sir.
We drink when we toast. We toast when we drink.
Yikes.
You are listening to 1510 AM WRRD Waukesha, Milwaukee, and 1580 AM WTTN Columbus, Wisconsin's Resistance Radio Network.
My name is Adam Holmes, and I'm proud to be union.
Adam, you're Director of Training for Painters District Council 7. What do you do?
I'm making sure that we're investing in our members. We're providing the safest and best trained painters, glazers, drywall finishers, and trade show workers in the industry, and we also do that at no cost to the taxpayers.
Why hire unions?
Because it costs less to be safe. We keep the contractor on the right side of OSHA and help keep the workmen's comp rates affordable. Join us, Painters and Allied Trades, District Council 7.
Have a drink at Regano's Roman Coin. This neighborhood corner tavern is as classic as the street it occupies. Family owned and operated since 1966, Regano's Roman Coin is located in a former Pabst Tide House on historic Brady Street, serving an array of craft beers with a focus on Wisconsin breweries. Also, weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, seasonal sporting events, parties hosted for all occasions, and pet friendly. Open 11 a.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday, closed on Monday. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's pet friendly, cash only order and classic corner tavern.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge.
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! Is now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend.
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
For Wisconsin's Resistance Radio Network, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines. Leaders from both parties, including Senator Tammy Baldwin, Governor Walker, and former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder, are now calling for a response from the federal government after it was reported last week that Russian Twitter trolls posted racially divisive tweets during the Sherman Park unrest in the summer of 2016 and posted tweets that supported the Trump campaign in Wisconsin during the presidential election. And about 100 homes in the town of Peshtigo, Wisconsin, are receiving bottled water from the Tyco Fire Products Company after their well water was contaminated by chemicals from a nearby firefighting training facility. Mostly sunny today and then partly cloudy tonight, lows in the mid-20s. Tomorrow, partly sunny, highs in the mid-30s. And for Wednesday, mostly cloudy with highs in the upper 30s. For Wisconsin's Resistance Radio Network, I'm Stu Daniels.
The Devil's Advocates, tackling the issues you're not allowed to talk about at the dinner table.
Got to be smart enough to operate these.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. No telling if we're smart enough to turn on the microphones, but we've been joined by a fine guest. She's Margaret Dawn?
Dawn,
my
the
bad.
dishwashing liquid.
I don't know what you mean. I don't wash the dishes.
Dawn, yes, Dawn.
Oh,
Dawn make. I know. I know.
Man. Whoa!
Listen to this guy over here.
I just put them in the dishwasher. That's all I meant. I'm
magic
helpful.
Box.
Actually, that's not true. I scrubbed the dishes this morning because I'm the one that made the mess last night. Margaret Dawn, the County Corporation Counsel.
Yes, that's the official
Milwaukee
title.
County. Maggie, I don't know if you had the opportunity to see Donald Trump address the nation from New Hampshire, put forth his new opioid plan, and his plan is air quotes. Maggie, death to drug dealers seems to be the biggest part of his plan. I want to get your opinion of what the president had to say earlier.
Well, I'm sure he called up Duterte and said, what do I do about this process problem? Listen, we know what criminalization of addiction problems looks like. We did it with the crack cocaine epidemic, and it had zero ultimate impact in resolving the addiction problem in our country. My office, I do not do criminal work. That's not what we do. We do civil work. And our mantra has been, and I'll say it again here, we will support law enforcement's efforts to deal with drug dealers on the street, but those that are equally culpable here, and yes, equally culpable in my opinion, and we'll see what the courts have to say about it, are the drug companies that made this poison and then lied about the fact that it was poisonous. Specifically, lied intentionally throughout the early 90s about the seriously addictive nature of these opioids, particularly when prescribed long-term. The Sackler family has been written about extensively. They have made billions, and they have never, not once, ever, been held in any court of law to be found partially responsible.
They're the owners of Purdue?
Yes,
the makers of OxyContin.
Yes, the former owners of Purdue. And I'll just throw this little fact at you. In 2007, the federal government entered into a settlement with Purdue Pharma, right, at a whopping $600 million. So let's make no mistake, these folks have already accepted blame for what they've done here, but not a single Sackler paid a penny. But the medical director, the general counsel, and the successor to Richard Sackler as president at Purdue Pharma, they paid out $34 million out of their own pockets. But again, the Sacklers let totally off the hook. So I would challenge Donald Trump and any other law enforcement agency and the folks that help make our laws, Jeff Sessions, hey, help us hold the people that started this whole problem, not just the guy in the street that sells the drugs illegally when folks can't get the scripts that they've become addicted to because of these companies' lies. Help us hold those people accountable as well. It seems insane to me to go after the little fish when the really big fish are still sitting out there.
Maggie, we've already got Lenny bias laws. If you provide the drugs that kill another, there is a means of prosecution here in the state of Wisconsin. John Nygren, Joint Finance Committee co-chair, his daughter Candy has sort of become the poster child for opioid addiction, at least in this state. And currently, my understanding, she is up on charges. She provided a fatal overdose to some acquaintance of hers. Do we currently have laws to battle the street level, the dealer that would give his friend or sell to someone or leave someone on the hospital doorstep? Do we already have a effective means of prosecuting on that level?
Certainly, and thank you for mentioning that. Well, it's not all states have an equivalent. I think it's an effective tool here. But again, we're talking about what level of resource to stop the flood. I'm not a law enforcement expert, and I won't pretend to be one. But the problem is demand, and it's the demand that's driving the street dealing level. And this stuff isn't pouring across the southern border. Most of it's coming in from China, the illegally manufactured opioids that end up on our streets. And so, again, if we don't solve the demand problem, in other words, if we don't fix education, treatment, rehab, you may get rid of dealer XYZ, but dealer ABC will be back there in another week fulfilling that demand. If there is demand, a supplier will fill it ultimately.
Maggie, we had a lay person. This guy followed Trump around the nation. He actually went through the tragedy, the loss of his own son. His name, Kraig Moss. He was with us back in the 3 o'clock hour. We know Kraig. We had met Kraig, and we know that Kraig followed the president around. Now, Kraig made an assertion to us, and I've heard it reported elsewhere. I want to get your opinion. Kraig said, since the legalization of marijuana in Colorado, in California, and other states, it's no longer profitable for the cartels to deal in illegal marijuana, and looking to fix the hole in their profit margins, they have effectively turned up the supply of heroin, made it cheaper on the streets. Want to get your opinion. Is there any veracity to a statement like that?
Well, certainly we'd have to look at the data. I don't like to throw out statements without being able to actually measure data. How do you measure data in black markets, like drug markets, human trafficking? There's economists that do that. You gentlemen might not know, but I'll share this with you. I consider myself firstly an economist. I got my graduate degree in economics. And if you're telling me as a testable theory what you just did, I say, yeah, that has some natural economic logic to it, right? I've been making this widget, and this widget is no longer profitable, so I'm going to take my supply stream system and apply it to a slightly different widget. Here we're simply talking about trading one illegal drug for another. Since I already have all of the infrastructure in place, that's what smart business people do all the time.
And I got a profit margin that I've been living on. I got to maintain
That's right.
that.
I got to maintain my profit margin. I'm going to be nimble in the marketplace. The same things that apply in legal markets apply in black markets with equal and sometimes greater force and efficiency because there's not the regulatory infrastructure to push back in black markets. We've seen it in numerous
bureaucracy and red tape.
Right. Sometimes those things actually serve a purpose. Who knew?
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Got a fine guest. She is the County Corporation Counsel of Milwaukee County. She's Margaret Dawn Maggie, we call her.
Except Earl. Earl always calls me Margaret, but that's all right.
Very formal young man, that
yes,
Earl. Maggie, once upon a time, the Bush administration actually made a war on marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
And they drove up the street prices of marijuana. Let me tell you, there were some dry days out there. But effectively, crack cocaine in relative cost to marijuana became the cheaper product. Yep. That would seem to go against the supply and demand theory, would it not, in some way, shape, or form? If the demand was not pre-existing, how does lowering the price of the drug increase the demand for that drug?
I'm not sure if I quite followed all of your question, but if the premise here
So if heroin or crack cocaine is cheaper,
yes,
is the cheapness of the drug in and of itself an increaser of demand?
Typically not in a standard economic model. But what you do is, given the addictive nature of these drugs, it can, in fact, spur a medium and longer term demand increase. You're not going to see it in the immediate pricing in your typical supply and demand models. The price won't necessarily drive demand. The price won't necessarily, drive demand. But over time, because we're talking about addictive substances, if it's readily available and hella cheap, pardon my French, yes, that may, in fact, over the medium and longer term, in fact, increase demand.
Meg, I got to ask you about the specific lawsuit here in Milwaukee County. Do we have standing as a county, and who are you suing, and what are you hoping to get out of this?
Great. The basics of the lawsuit.
That's what I'm
right?
saying.
I love it when people ask me questions I know the answer to. That's good. So standing, that for your listeners, if they're not familiar with sort of legalisms, is do I have a right, have I, an individual or an entity or a government, incurred a harm that the law articulates a potential resolution for, right? A means to seek redress in our courts. And the answer to that is yes. The easiest analogy that your listeners may be aware of was the big tobacco lawsuits, where governments across the country, mostly at the state level, sued large tobacco manufacturers for the negative impacts that tobacco and smokers were having in terms of healthcare costs and other things. Here, you're seeing more local governments pursuing these lawsuits. So yes, we have standing. What's the nature of the lawsuit? We've asserted a variety of claims. The complaint is over 180 pages long. But the claims basically sound in fraud. What's fraud here? They lied about the addictive properties of these drugs repeatedly, and they did so to sell more of them and to earn a profit. That's fraud. It's also an intentional misrepresentation. It could be a negligent misrepresentation, depending on how the court ends up viewing these claims. We've asserted RICO claims against them. This is unique about our lawsuit. How do the RICO claims work? Effectively, there was a conspiracy amongst both manufacturers and distributors and amongst manufacturers themselves to commit wire and mail fraud. That's the basics of a RICO claim. And what are we seeking? We're primarily seeking injunctive relief. In other words, a script for an 80 milligram tablet of an opioid is insanity. right? That just doesn't make any sense. It is, if you talk to physicians, it's way out of line with what you would normally see. If someone needs that level of pain management, they should likely be having a very intimate, almost daily interaction with a doctor and perhaps looking at a different sort of pain management. It might also be with opioids, but different sorts of pain management if your pain is at that level of acuteness. So looking at the literal size of the prescription. So injunctive relief as well as, of course, compensatory damages. And here's where the analogy to the tobacco lawsuits stops. In the tobacco suits, the person that was injured primarily when they smoked was themselves. And yes, they needed increased health care. But here, we are seeing these impacts diffusing across nearly every single county services. Our child support services and collections, right? Somebody develops a wicked addiction to this stuff. They end up not able to go to work. Maybe they even lose their life. That means that now we've got a kid that might need assistance, right? So we're seeing it in our Department of Children and Family Services. We're seeing it in increased volumes of court cases, both in family court, juvenile court, and our regular criminal court system. Our behavioral health hospital. All of our beds, almost, and the medical director out there would know these statistics better than I, but nearly all of our inpatient treatment beds for aorta treatment are taken by folks that are battling with opioid problems. We don't have enough of them for folks with opioid problems. And what does this mean? Our other citizens and residents that are struggling with other addictions no longer can access our inpatient aorta treatment. It's also showing up in our Department of Health and Human Services. Again, our outpatient treatment and rehabilitation, our educational programming. So the costs are much, much broader and diffuse and across numerous county services. Of course, our medical examiner, our jails, our House of Correction, and our law enforcement are also seeing increased upticks. So it's really impacting all across county services.
Maggie, does the settlement that Purdue went through, 10, 11 years ago with the federal government, does that impact any sort of liability they may have now on the county or local level?
Not in these civil suits. So the federal government fulfills a different regulatory purpose when it seeks to either sue on a company for a violation of a federal regulation, et cetera. That is a very different lawsuit and settlement process than what we as Milwaukee County are seeking in terms of civil damages to make whole the county, to make whole our taxpayers and residents who are effectively footing the bill.
Of course, yeah.
And let me put it this way. Everybody out there, we're subsidizing the billions that these companies have made. That's what's happening. They have simply passed the buck down to taxpayers and in the process made themselves filthy, stinking rich. And now want to say, please don't hold us accountable. I say hogwash, and we're going to go after them.
Maggie, what about the Attorney General Brad Schimmel? What about Scott Walker? Where do they factor into these lawsuits, or at least the one affecting Milwaukee County?
The state has its own process, and I simply am not patient enough to wait to see what they're going to do. So
do they seem hesitant to you to sue these pharmaceutical manufacturers? Has there been foot-dragging delays on the state's behalf?
I don't really know what their decision-making process is. I don't really want the state involved in my lawsuit. They have different damages, and my argument will be always that it's the local governments that really end up footing the biggest portion of the bill on this. I'm happy to assist with the state, take any help they want to send our way, absolutely 100%. But we, Milwaukee County, we've got separate damages, separate harms, and separate problems that we need to solve that are related to our local services. I'm not going to look to the state to help me or the other service providers in Milwaukee County try to fix our local problems.
You talked about standing. Who is the plaintiff? Who has the standing in this case? Is it the county?
It is Milwaukee County. There are around 65 other counties that have also filed separate suits. They're not associated with ours. But yes, it is Milwaukee County. My office is leading that charge. And again, we really refuse, and we're trying to stand up and say that we as a county, we as residents and taxpayers will not subsidize multi-billion-dollar companies.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Got a fine guest live in studio here on Brady. She is Margaret Dawn. She is the County Corporate counsel, Milwaukee County. It's a lot of C words.
You get there. I know. It's a tongue twister.
Maggie, if you'd be so kind, stick around. We'll be right back here on Wisconsin's only Resistance Radio Network, 1510 AM, Waukesha, Milwaukee, 1580 AM, Columbus, Madison.
We cannot arrest everybody that somebody thinks is dangerous.
We will find you. We will arrest you. We will jail you. We will throw you the hell out of the country.
We are people of compassion.
Will there be a lawsuit? Yeah, probably.
Scott Walker thinks Wisconsin should once again hire him as governor.
You wouldn't hire me to be a neurosurgeon.
This is a person who has not worked in the private sector since 1993.
You wouldn't hire me to run condos. You wouldn't hire me to run HP.
And has made his political career.
You probably wouldn't hire me to run the United States Senate.
By using divisive tactics to the benefit of his corporate donors.
First step is we're going to deal with collective bargaining for all public employee unions. Because you divide and conquer.
Now he supports the largest publicly funded government subsidy of a foreign corporation in American history.
You know, they can go suck lemons.
And Scott Walker has yet to live up to his first campaign promise to create 250,000 jobs.
Is this a campaign promise, something you want to be held to?
Absolutely.
Scott Walker, we the people are done sucking your lemons. This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org, p4ppc.org.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
You've messed up your daughter's haircut. Do you A, get spiritual?
Mom, where's the mirror?
Beauty is within. Oh.
B, find the positives?
Less time blow drying, more time texting?
Or C, show empathy?
Mom, you really don't have to.
Twinsies!
I kinda love it. You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on adoption, visit adoptuskids.org. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Everybody buckle up.
Mom.
Buckle up.
Let's go.
Buckle up.
Can we go to the store? Mom,
buckle
can we get
up.
some ice cream?
Everybody, buckle up.
A lot goes on in the car, but you're in control. So only move when you hear the click that says they're buckled in. Never give up until they buckle up. Learn more at safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Do you own a rental property, or would you like to partner with a rental investment team? Call the pros you can trust at CCL Management. Rental expertise second to none, a general contractor on staff to direct repairs and improvements, and real estate brokerage services tailored to the small investor. If you're ready to invest in rental property or just need professionals to manage your real estate portfolio, call us, CCL Management, at 608-833-0009 or visit us on the web at cclmanagement.com.
I'm Glendale Mayor Brian Kennedy, running for re-election in April. You can learn more about my campaign at kennedyforglendalemayor.com. I'm joined today by my friend Matt Flynn, former State Democratic Party chair and candidate for governor. Matt, why are you running for governor?
We used to have honest government, clean water, and high wages in this state. Now under Walker, we have corrupt government, dirty water, and low wages. I'm going to change that.
You can vote for Brian Kennedy for mayor on April 3rd in Glendale, and Matt Flynn for governor in the Democratic primary on August 14th. Paid for by Kennedy for Glendale.
Hey folks, sexy liberal Stephanie Miller here. Most new Wisconsin jobs are in Dane County, it's true. Some of my listeners are relocating to Madison, many already commute there. When asked where to turn for a trusted real estate team that understands Madison, I say the same thing. Solidarity Realty. They help you through the process and protect your consumer rights. They live their values building community, promoting sustainability and diversity. Find them today at solidarityrealty.com and tell them Stephanie Miller sent you.
Tune in to The Resistance, Wisconsin's Resistance Radio. Start your weekday off with the Earl Ingram Show from 7 to 9 a.m. Next is the Stephanie Miller Show from 9 to 11. Then from 11 to 2, it's the Tom Hartman Program. At 2 o'clock, it's 414 Wisconsin. Then from 3 to 6, it's the Devil's Advocates. Mandatory listening. Wisconsin's Resistance Radio.
The Devil's Advocates, because freedom.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show live on Wisconsin's Resistance Radio Network. If you miss any of this fine show, please go to the website. You can download or listen to podcasts and interviews. Check out domandcroot.com.
Dominic, we've got a fine guest live in our Brady Street studio. She's Margaret Dawn. She is the County Corporation Counsel for Milwaukee County. We're talking about Milwaukee County's lawsuit against the pharmaceutical industry. Maggie, I got to ask you, though, I understand this problem continues to get worse. Can you give us some local stats? How bad is it here?
Sure. Thanks for the question. I mean, people understand that this is an issue because many folks have neighbors, friends, family members, coworkers that struggle with it. But what does it really mean on like a county dollar basis? Let's look at some of the baseline statistics. In 2017 alone, nearly 400 people died in Milwaukee County from opioids. 5 times that number were in our emergency rooms that were non-fatal ODs that needed treatment. Those have real cost implications all across county services. That increase in ER visits was an increase of 109% over the same period of time measured a year earlier. In other words, our OD rate is doubling.
Wow.
Okay? That is compared to a national increase of only 30%. That is really scary. The states that most people equate to the depths of the opioid crisis, West Virginia, Ohio, New Hampshire. Well, what we're seeing now in the data is that Wisconsin's catching up quick and not in a good way. That's really, really frightening numbers. Let me just share with you this other statistic. Right now in 2016, approximately 64,000 people died of this epidemic in the United States. That's way more than the 50,000 people that lost their lives during the peak of the AIDS epidemic in 1 year. And 64,000 deaths per year is more than the entire number of combat-related deaths from the Vietnam War in total. That's shocking figures of people dying here.
And that's every year.
That is every year. And again, to put this in context, there was approximately $10 billion each year spent on the AIDS crisis. Right now, $56,000 was directed from the federal government after Trump declared this a public health emergency. That's 2 cents per addict. That'll really make a dent.
Wow.
So the magnitude of the problem, both nationally and Wisconsin, is serious and grave. It's getting worse here, and we're struggling to find the funds and the support that we need from both the state and the federal government.
Margaret Dawn, Corporate Counsel, Milwaukee County, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to Kraig Moss, the former Trump Troubadour. No more. His book will release in July. Pre-order it. James Santel, the former U.S. Attorney for Eastern District of Wisconsin. It's been a busy day. We'll do it all again tomorrow. Congressman Mark Pocan, the guy that offered McCabe a job. We'll talk to him. Maggie, thanks so much for coming down here. We are the Devil's Advocates on Wisconsin's only Resistance Radio Network. We'll do it all again for you tomorrow.
But there's been no collusion, no obstruction, and virtually everybody agrees to that.
Everybody in is innocent, and you know that?
Hi, this is Brad Saug, owner of Zero Res Madison Carpet Cleaning. Zero Res is the best new technology in carpet cleaning. We have a patented process using empowered water, a high-tech process in which we force the water to act like soap. It doesn't want to stay in that state. It's jacked up and it's angry and it wants